Yeah, a bit of a technical issue. All right. Boom, 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 boom. I think we're up and running now. Not that anyone's here yet, looks like. Although my good friend Eastland Burkholder, if you're hearing this later, I mean, he did say he might try to stop in later. We'll see. There's someone here. RR is here. Oh, right. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you, RR, for being here. And thank you all, those of you who will show up, those of you who may hear us later on the stream. I'm glad you were all here. Whether you're here immediately or not, whether you're here retroactively or not, I'm glad either way. Clobberin time, issue number 12, i.e. 712. RN Feliciano, sorry. Welcome, sir. I am so happy to have you stop in, man. I appreciate it greatly. All right. All rightiness. We're gonna have my partner in crime is supposed to be Carlos, and he's supposed to have been here already. Okay. Sorry, doing a little sound check there. There he is. There he is. What's up, baby cakes?
Just over here. Slowly dying of boredom.
Oh, well, you probably came to the wrong place for a cure for that, but we'll do what we can. What's up, buddy? Yeah, I mean, the boredom's getting everybody, man.
Yeah.
That is a boredom. There's a boredom pandemic, from what I understand, going on, and that's what we're all dealing with tonight. And in a short time, my friends, we will get to the topic at hand, which of course this is, and as I said, of course, Clobberin time issue number 12 / actually 712, and it being August, the month of the birth month of the great Jack Kirby, the king of comics, and I'll be celebrating him a lot this month after we, and we'll start on doing some of that in just a bit. We'll tackle a few things. Today would have been the birthday of, because we thought this is, this is an odd creators month. I never really realized it. Not only is it my birth month, which is insignificant, beyond belief, in fact, but it is this month is the birth month of no less than 3 of the most important creators in all of popular fiction. Believe it or not. Obviously, we're here to celebrate one of those, the great Jack Kirby, who was born on the 28th of August of 1917. Okay, on a couple, I think the day before that, or was it 2 days before? I'm getting my days mixed up a little bit. The creator of the most powerful science fiction franchise of all time, Star Trek, Gene Roddenberry, also born this month, and today would be the birthday of a guy who arguably created something almost as huge worldwide as Star Trek. The 3 biggest worldwide phenomenons in terms of science fiction media, movie, television, and whatever, obviously are Star Wars, Star Trek, and the third one is Doctor Who. Well, Terry Nation didn't create Doctor Who, but what he did was save it. Because the very second, for those of you who don't know Doctor Who, just bear with me for a second, because it does need to be celebrated. I love it, and it's a huge one, no matter how much it's been ruined recently. Terry Nation not only created one of the greatest science fiction shows of all time, which was Blake 7, one of my favorites, even created a very famous show called MacGyver, co-created it anyway. But Doctor Who's very second episode, which it was on the verge of being canceled after its very first episode aired in 1963, and then they debuted an episode called The Daleks. The Daleks became a huge UK phenomenon with that show. So much so the show would have been dead. It was going to be toasted. It was going to be, not only was it going to be ruined, their parents writing in after it was first written it first aired, saying, "Get those horrible monsters. Our kids don't want those. Get them off. Don't ever show them again." And the kids wrote in loving them, fell in love with Daleks. And Daleks became a craze in the 60s. Like we in the States just don't even know. Well, you know if you watch a lot of history about it. But it was as big to them as institution, as comic books, as Star Wars was to the youth growing up here, as Star Trek was here, and Doctor Who's survival was because of the Daleks. So much so that they're a separate property. Matter of fact, if they don't put the Daleks every couple of years in a Doctor Who episode, the trademark runs back out to the Terry Nation estate. So that's why you see the Daleks pop up on Doctor Who so often. So anyway, Terry Nation, a great creator and writer. Obviously Gene Roddenberry and Jack Kirby all in the same month. Who knows whom else would be there, but it's pretty amazing stuff right there. Wild, weird stuff, as they say. And a few things going on in comics and things like that. Well, we're not gonna get too much into that, but one thing, I sent you a picture earlier, my friend. For those who have not seen it yet, we all know that comic books are dead. We're going to be celebrating, strangely enough, we're going to celebrate one of the greatest creators of this now sadly dead medium, who, as much as I wish he was here, I know he would not love to see what's happening to it. And I'm not going to go too far into this, but any of you have not seen the new variant cover on the upcoming, I believe, movie tie-in for the upcoming Wonder Woman film, starring Gal Gadot. I guess that's how you say her name. I don't know if I shouldn't even show it, should I?
I think you should, just to show how far comic books have lowered themselves, just to, shoehorn diversity, which is just unnecessary. One thing is to try to get to the most amount of people possible, but talking about people like Jack Kirby, the King, of course, Stan Lee, who along with Kirby created the whole Marvel universe. They were not worried about diversity. They were worried about telling good stories.
Right.
And if you read those early Marvels, yeah, they're dated, they're very 60s. But at heart, they're just amazing, adventurous stories. I mean, if you read the first 50, the first 100 issues of Fantastic Four, those stories are amazing. They're traveling to just these new worlds that nobody had thought of. If you read the first few issues of Doctor Strange, nobody had ever told a story like Stan Lee and Steve Ditko did with supernatural occurrences, with just all this magic, really, and they reached everybody. Everybody was reading those comic books. People that the publisher couldn't believe how many people they were reaching. If you remember, Stan Lee tells a story. Who knows if it's true? But Martin Goodman didn't want to publish Spider-Man because he goes, nobody's going to want to read a story about a young hero, about like a teenage hero. And he was so wrong, because everybody wanted to everybody identified with Spider-Man. He didn't have to be white or black or Latino. All that he had to be was a good character inside a good story with good villains and with like a moral and stuff like that. That's all you needed. But nobody's worried about that anymore. Nobody worries about the stories. Everybody just worries about, how many, minorities do we have in this comic book? How many black people can we put in? How many white people can we put in? How many Latinos? And let me tell you something. I'm Mexican. I grew up in Mexico. And I could care less if Scott Summers is a white American or a Latino. I could care less what Superman, who's an alien, identifies as. All I care about is their heroic ideals. I do not care about their ethnicity. And if you please show that cover, because it is just so ridiculous. I don't know who that cover is for.
Well, I believe we have it here. Let's hang on one second. For some reason, the stupid picture won't load up my normal in the normal way, so I don't have a big representation of it here, folks.
Surprise.
Oh my God, I don't have a big representation of it here, folks. For some reason, because I can't. I don't know why. I can't save this picture, or I can't. It's not showing up in my pics for some reason when I try to save it. Because why would it?
Your computer refuses to store it.
Yes.
It will take up too many
You can see it right there, I believe.
Yeah, you can see it, you know.
Wow. And it's just a variant cover, okay? But that's no excuse. DC Comics is hemorrhaging money. AT&T is about to shut their asses down, and they do this just as a fuck you to fans who bitch about the moron SJWs who run DC in the editorial department. And look at this crap. What do you do? Are you that tone deaf? Of course, the answer. We all know the answer to that. Yes. But good God, man. I don't know. I mean, yeah, I guess you guys like that sort of thing. I mean, who wants this? Can someone explain that to me?
I don't know. It's kind of like, you know what it reminds me of? And, you know, if I offend any women that are listening to this show, I really am sorry. But, you know, I always thought like superheroes were like an ideal, you know, something to aspire to. You know, it's impossible for a normal human being to look like Superman or to look like Batman, but you can try. You can give it your best, you know? So as you know, you met me when I was a little chubbier. I was a little, you know, overweight and stuff. And inspired by Batman and Superman and all these heroes that I love, I started working out. I got myself on a diet, and you know, I lost the weight. I got some muscle. So I look at myself now and I go, well, you know, I'm no Batman, but at least I aspire to. The same thing is, I think that happened to girls with Barbie. I don't know. I just assume, you know, you see a beautiful, you know, doll, and you go, well, you know, I wish I could look like that. And everybody can, with just a little sacrifice, a little work. You can, you know, try to look your best. But having a picture like that is taking this perfect warrior woman, an Amazon, a woman who has grown up in a society that worships, well, not so much war, but, you know, fighting prowess. She's been training her entire life. The woman, of course, if she's been training since she was a child, she would have, you know, a toned, athletic body. That picture does not represent a warrior woman. It represents an everyday woman, which is not a bad thing. It's just not something to aspire to, because everybody can be ordinary. The cool thing about superheroes is that they were extraordinary. They were doing things that normal human people couldn't do, but everybody could aspire to.
And that's what it's all about.
You know?
See, that's what it's all about. That's what you're saying. Like, look, it doesn't matter what you look like. When you read a comic book, when you watch a film or whatever, I mean, especially, as a matter of fact, especially if you don't look like Gal Gadot, you still don't want to watch a film you want to watch it. Look, sorry to break it to some people, but you do want to watch the attractive people. Everyone, whether you are attractive personally or not. In a sane world, you go, well, look, I ain't that in the mirror, but you know what? I don't want to watch my fat ass running around in a costume either. That's not what I sign up for when I watch a film. I don't want to watch Superman running around with, you know, with moobs, okay? I don't want to watch Batman. I don't want to watch Wonder Woman or any of them looking like average people, just like you just pointed out. Nobody does, no matter what you actually look like in real life. It is a fantasy escape, and you're right. You do want to look like that. So you can't just all of your entertainment can't be based on looking like you. That's this modern sick mentality the SJWs and a lot of people of this era have. Like, they won't watch anything unless they can. I hate to use this word, makes me cringe, dude. Identify with it.
Well, I know
Who goes to see Wonder Woman and wants to see that? What we're looking at there. You want to see Gal Gadot, Linda Carter. Polly, good to see you there, buddy.
I have a really good friend who lives. He doesn't live in Mexico City, where I live. He lives in Guadalajara, which is like 7 hours away. He's a really nice guy. Also loves comic books. His wife is not such a big comic book fan, but she likes comic books. Right. Her favorite character of all time is Wonder Woman. Right.
Mhm.
So when you showed me that picture, I showed it to her.
Oh God.
And she was disgusted. Now she's a regular woman. She's not ugly. She's not chubby. She's not overweight. She's just a regular, very beautiful lady. She's married to my friend, uh, and she's just normal. But she wants to see a warrior woman. She wants to see an Amazon. She wants a Wonder Woman. So when I showed her that picture, she was disgusted because she actually said, "Please tell me that's not true."
I thought, look, I had to double check and read and triple and quadruple check to make sure it wasn't a joke cover, somebody trying to be funny. Because if you let's face it, if you're trying to be funny in today's, you can't tell anymore. You can't tell if someone's trying to be fucking funny now because it's ridiculous. By the way, let's say some before we get going. Let's say some hello to some of our friends who are here. RR again, as I said, Eastland Burkholder. I'm so glad to see you both here. Latino Slant, my very good friend Paulie. Hey, buddy. Thanks for having me on the other night, and we're going to have you on soon, man. I hope to hook up with you to do some more streaming, man. My good new friend RN Feliciano, an author, by the way. Go check out his page. You can put your page up there if you want there, man. He's got a new book he's just written, and science fiction book out there. So you can check that out for him. He is a cool dude and a fellow legionnaire of Doomcock's Great Legion, as so many of us are. And we'll get to our topic in just a second, but just a further point, it's like, yes, these are, I don't understand this modern mentality, Carlos, my old friend, that, again, it does, no matter what you look like, when you read these things, they are escapism. Part of escapism is, you're not trying, yes, you would like to be like that. That is part of it, especially when you're a kid. But you also there's the point. You want to be like Superman. You don't want to make Superman like you.
No, I never did.
You want to be like Batman. You don't want to make Batman like you. That's the whole point.
Like I said, I'm Mexican. I was chubby. I had glasses. I had really bad hair. And I never wanted Batman to look like me. I wanted to look like him.
And most women want to look like Wonder Woman.
I tried my level best to be like that.
I also showed that to two different lovely women friends of mine who both have cosplayed Wonder Woman. They're both beautiful. They both love Wonder Woman. They both love Linda Carter. One of them's about to start yelling at me because I showed it to her because she's going to go nuts. The other one was as disgusted as the lady you're talking about. She's like, "That. Please tell me that's a joke." It's terrible.
So
it's fucking disgusting.
I feel all right saying what I just said because I show it. I thought it was wrong, and then I showed it to a woman who loved the character. And she said it was wrong. So okay,
it is.
Yeah. If that cover is not for me, and it's not for her, who is it for?
It's for people who don't even buy comics. Look, just before we started here, I brought that picture. This just broke about an hour or two ago, buddy. I brought that picture to my good friend Iris, a young lady, lovely young lady who was doing she just did like a 5-hour live stream. They were in the middle of it. They were talking about comics anyway. So I broke in with that news and showed it to them. And again, a lady, really sweet, lovely young lady. She's laughing her ass off at it, saying that's horrible. It's stupid. Most people, male or female, no matter what they look like, think that's idiotic and it's not Wonder Woman. No one wants to see it. By the way, that's not even in the movie. Why are you even making that cover in a comic book tie-in to the movie? Well, that fucking picture has nothing to do with the movie. What are you doing? DC, who is about to be out of fucking business, and we wonder why. You fucking idiots.
I was looking at at just the regular cover. What's wrong with that?
Yeah, yeah. But again,
What do we need
it's
a
not
bad
even in the movie.
bad? I mean,
See, that cover's not even.
a bad
Yeah,
would be something that is worth more, or it's better. This is worse. I just
yes, and that's not even a comic book. It's just why would you make that cover? Nobody wants that shit. My friend Latino Slant Polly said, I showed the cover to my girlfriend, and she said, "You know what that's all about?" Yes, yeah, we all do. You're right. We know what it's all about. It's basically they call her body positive Wonder Woman.
okay, now, here's the regular cover.
Yes, that's one of. There are some variants, but that's a nice cover.
But what's wrong?
Just variant covers are annoying anyway. But why would you do one that has zero to do with the movie?
That
Hey,
looks like the girl from the movie.
I don't even think that was Etta Candy, dude.
I know.
So stupid, man. Fuck you, DC, man. That's why you're going out of business. Congratulations, DC.
I don't know. It's so sad because when I was very young, I told you the story. I don't know if, of course, if the people that are listening to us are now know my story. Of course, they probably don't. But I'm guessing my story reflects a lot of your stories, which is basically that I was a very lonely kid. I had very little, contact with other kids except like in school. But that was when I was in Mexico. I studied from grades 1 through 4 in Mexico, and then from grades 5 all the way through high school, I was living in the U.S. And those first few years, I had no friends because I didn't know the language. I didn't know how everything was. I was just very lonely. And the one thing that kept me sane, the one thing that gave me hope, the one thing that gave me fun, was comic books. I could read comic books, and it was like visiting a friend. I could see the Legion of Superheroes, I could see the Justice League, I could see the Fantastic Four, the Avengers, and I just didn't think about my problems, didn't think about my loneliness. I was excited. And now I read comic books, and it's a chore because the continuity makes no sense.
Yeah,
you're talking about DC. Literally every 5 years now, they do a reboot and everything starts over. And I'm like, comic book continuity is hard enough. I mean, the whole reason for the whatchamacallit, the Crisis on Infinite Earths was because, continuity was just so dense. But it took 50 years for people to say, okay, well, let's do something new so we can, this can be easier. But now, literally every 5 years, how can you mess up continuity in 5 years? How?
They don't give a fuck anymore. They don't give a flying fuck anymore.
Marvel continuity was so well established, back in the 60s, that it lasted very long, up until the 200s, before they did like a soft reboot with the Ultimate Universe. But that was just because lazy people didn't want to go back and read those comic books because some of those are very readable. I mean, you can read the Dark Phoenix saga now. How can you not have fun? It's an amazing saga.
Great stuff. And we'll do a show on that one. Yeah.
You can still read it, no problem. The Hobgoblin saga, it's very good. There was Kraven's Last Hunt that came out in the 80s. It's magnificent.
It's a good thing. There's a great backlog of all those great comics you're talking about, man, because they ain't gonna be making any new ones.
That's what
except for the crowdfunded guys. Yeah.
Literally, I remember. I have a radio show over here in Mexico, and recently, somebody sent me a message. Right? He goes, "Hey Joey, by the way, I would like to know what's the order of these comic books because I want to read them in order." And I go, "Okay, that's an interesting comic book question. Let me check it out." So I looked down at the titles that he wanted to read in order. It was like Dark Knight's Metal, Justice League War, I think it's Apocalypse War or something like that. And I'm like, why is he reading that? And why does he care if he reads them in order or not? It's not going to make sense in 2 years. You know, it, you know, as simple as a story as Secret Wars, the original Secret Wars was, it still stood the test of time for a long time because all the changes that happened there were changes that helped the characters or hindered the characters or just modified the characters for a long time. You may love or hate the Spider-Man black costume, but it modified the character, made him something new, made him something different, and people
Yeah.
were interested. You may hate or love the fact that Thing left the Fantastic Four and She-Hulk became part of the group. You may hate it, but the thing is still changed. It changed the dynamic for a little while, and Ben Grimm was going to come back. But by changing the dynamic, you made those comic books fun again. You made them new again because you're modifying something, but you're not irrevocably changing everything about the character. And that's what happened with like the New 52. They changed those characters to their core, that they stopped being the characters that we know and love. I mean, Batman was more or less the same. Nightwing, again, more or less the same. Same with Aquaman, Flash, and Green Lantern. But Superman, he stopped in the New 52. Superman stopped being Superman. Wonder Woman. I mean, the one cool thing about her origin, one thing that I loved, especially the way it was retold by George Perez, is that Hippolyta, Queen of the Amazon, felt this emptiness inside her, and she doesn't know what it means. She doesn't know what she needs, and the goddess tell her, "You had a daughter before you died, and you can have her again." And she has to mold her from clay. And the way George Perez draws the scene, the way she molds she's making her daughter. She's literally making her daughter with her own hands, without the help of a man, because she does not need the help of a man. Her love is enough to create this beautiful warrior princess. And when the baby comes to life, thanks to the goddesses of Olympus, Hippolyta starts to cry because she has made life, and it's just a beautiful moment. And they ruin that by say, oh, she's Sue's daughter. I'm like, oh god, again. It's not like Sue didn't have 2 billion children already,
Yeah.
It makes her ordinary again. Doesn't make her special. Before, she was molded out of clay by the love of her mother. Now she's just, a bastard child of Sue.
I hate that shit, man. I'm so with you. I love her original origin. It's so much more beautiful.
It's poetry.
Yep. Fuck the new Wonder Woman origin. I hate that. But we're stuck with it.
Well, yeah, and now it's part of continuity. You go, okay, fine, whatever.
It's fucking decent.
But it would have been such a pretty scene, like in the Wonder Woman movie, And the thing is, it's even funnier because when you can have Steve Trevor ask her how she came to be, in an island with no men, and she can say, "Oh yeah, my mom molded me out of clay," and that's a funny moment that you could have between two people. But of course,
Jobber.
You're in.
Sorry.
It's okay.
You right? No, I hear you, man. Jobber's here. Thanks for popping in there, brother. Yeah, and it's kind of a lot of what you're talking about there, even though our subject of tonight's topic didn't create Wonder Woman. And of course, he created so much else. I wrote this.
How about everything else?
Well, yeah. Again, and I will again, as I have a couple times already, just on the show recently. Since this is, of course, everyone, Jack Kirby month. He was born this month. It would have been. Well, there you go. He was born in 1970. 17. Well, at a con that I was at, where I got the second time I got to spend time and meet Jack, of course, this picture of terrible picture, but what are you going to do? Scott Young's camera. I think Scott Young took that one.
That's back in the day where there were no cell phone cameras, right?
That's exactly. No camera, no cell phones at all. Cell phone cameras. There were no cell phones at all. There were payphones, man. 1990. This is. I'm a 26-year-old dumbass with the King of Comics right there, and that was it, man. That's my greatest. I ain't ever gonna get close to that one, and I had a great time with him. But one of the Well, one of the great things, about Jack Kirby that at this particular con is like I'll relate it real quick. I know I've said it before, but the great Julius Schwartz, legendary DC editor, was there, and he was emceeing an event. And Jack was one of the guests of honor. And I remember I was able to help guide Jack to that. I plowed the way through the crowd to get him there, just like the ever-loving blue-eyed thing. Boy, was I proud. Anyway, when Mr. Schwartz, announced Jack Kirby on the stage, he got up there and he said in his inimitable way, Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster created Superman. Bob Kane and Bill Finger created Batman. And Jack Kirby did everything else. And as I always like to say, the kind of humble guy Jack was, he would have probably poo-pooed that a little bit. He didn't get a chance to talk about it that much, but he would have said, he always went out there and he talked about there were a lot of other creators, and he's right, but Schwartz was right, too. I mean, yes, there are other creators, absolutely, many of them. No question about it. But in terms of sheer output and importance and output of artwork alone, not to mention all the creators and ideas and concepts and characters this man created, it's not even close. Not even close. No one's come close to the kind of prolific imagination that Jack Kirby had. He's the king, always will be. And as much as I have a lot of problems with his buddy Stan, or his partner Stan, at the time, Stan was right to call him the king. And even he knew that. And look, we're going to talk a little bit about Jack King Kirby, his life. And we're going to just kind of be general about it. Say again.
Just to put it in context, just how important this man is. The whole Justice League that Zack Snyder is going to redo for HBO Max.
Yeah.
It's involved with one of his greatest creations, Darkseid.
Yes.
And, by having the Eternals be part of the fourth phase of Marvel movies, I'm guessing, they're going to go really deep into all the Jack Kirby mythology for the Phase 4 of Marvel.
Yeah, I would imagine so. Yeah,
because you're starting with the Eternals. That the Celestials can't be far behind. If you involve the Fantastic,
they've already had the Celestials. Remember, in Guardians of the Galaxy.
I know, but they were like a cameo, not so much
sure.
role.
Sure.
You can have the Celestials. You can have Galactus if you involve the Fantastic Four. Right. You can have Annihilists, of course, with the Annihilation Wave. You can have just the Negative Zone attacking Earth. You can have the Kree Skrull War, which of course were creations of the King. So just pretty much everything. And basically, what they've been trying, what Zack Snyder was aiming for in his Justice League was to involve the fourth world characters, Apocalypse and Darkseid and everything else. So you go, without Jack, we don't have the Eternals, we don't have the Celestials, we don't have Galactus, we don't have Annihilus, we don't have the Eternals, we don't have the New Gods, we don't have these big parts. I mean, even Thanos, he's based on Darkseid. With no Darkseid, you have no Thanos. You have no Infinity Gauntlet. You have no Infinity Gauntlet. Boom.
Yeah, it's all from Kirby. I mean,
Adam Warlock, again, Kirby creation. You don't have Adam Warlock. You don't have the Soul Gem. You don't have the Soul Gem. You don't have the other Infinity Gems, etc., etc. It's a domino effect.
Every penny of the billions of bucks that Marvel and their various owners over the years have made, it's Jack. That's why it drives me insane. This is not a Stan Lee bashing to show. You know what I think of Lee, but it's fine that he makes the cameos, okay? But every time I see a cameo, I'm going, why is he a household name when the guy without whom Stan would have been writing magazines for some cheap lord, he almost left the industry, okay? Stan, I'm sorry, would have lingered in obscurity without Jack. It's just a fact.
I think they needed each other. They really needed each other because
it's true. Yeah, but it's still lopsided.
Well, to me, the problem that I have with Lee is that he's a liar and that he takes way too much credit. But I really, really do believe that Lee needed the imagination and, of course, the talent of Jack Kirby, and Jack Kirby needed someone to ground him. Because
Well,
when you see the stuff that they did together in Fantastic Four, it's wondrous, but it's grounded in reality. It's grounded in melodrama.
right.
It's grounded in the characters. And when
Yeah,
you
but
see something like the Fourth World or just the New Gods, Mister Miracle, it's all these
right.
grand
But
ideas that kind of lose focus because
yeah,
he had such a wonderful imagination. He needed someone to ground him, and like people like Mark Evanier, or however you say his name, Evanier, who
yeah,
was
but
a longtime collaborator, did not admire him too much to ground him, and Lee always grounded him. But they needed each other. It was a beautiful symbiotic relationship, and I think Lee just shit all over that relationship by taking
yeah.
credit.
Yeah, and again, but here's the thing I want to avoid is litigating that whole thing again because you could do 18 hours on it, and Stanley is just Santa Claus to too many people. You're absolutely right. However, here's one thing that people, when they say what you've said, that you have to kind of make sure you go after him and say, look, if Stan Lee had dropped out of comics when he had wanted to before Atlas had failed and there'd been no Marvel, no question about it, it would be a very different industry. Stan could not have gone along by himself without Mark Goodman carrying him in the industry. He was going to have to go do something else. Whereas Ditko or anyone else, and especially Kirby, could have continued on and still worked in comics. There's no question about that. His combinations with Lee, especially with what Lee did outside of the creating aspect of it, was huge and was important. But the heavy lifting was all done by Kirby in terms of creating characterization, especially characterization Lee did a good bit of.
Well,
Uh,
just
Concepts,
the
art,
images.
and imaging. Yeah, but the concepts too, and the plots too.
Yeah, but like I don't think Lee could come up with the Inhumans.
No,
But
he didn't.
he made you feel something for the Inhumans.
Right.
That's kind of like the way that I think about it. But I think he was a rat for just taking all the credit when he could have just shared it. And they could.
Right.
I mean, look at this. I'm a big cinephile. One of my favorite movies of all time is, of course, Citizen Kane, because if you love movies, you have to love Citizen Kane. It's kind of like one of those rules. Now, if you're talking about ego, Orson Welles had the hugest, most gigantic, enormous ego ever. Yet, when it came to the credit in his director card at the end of Citizen Kane, he put Greg Toland, the cinematographer, there because he considered him an ally. He could not have done that movie without Greg Toland. He recognized this, and he put his ego to the side. Why could Orson Welles do it and not Stanley? Why?
Well, because Stanley was never that
Totally get the ego. Oh, don't get me started on Captain America. Everybody here in Mexico thinks Stan Lee created Captain America. That annoys me.
That's where we're going to start right now. We're going to go back. We're going to go to
We're
going to go to Jack right now and say, Stan, look, no offense, buddy, but this is about Jack. Because that's just the way we roll here. But you're right. No question about Rosebud. There you go, Rosebud, man. We're going to basically say, Jack Kirby started out his career actually working as an animator on some of the Max Fleischer Popeye cartoons. He used various different names. We worked on those. But eventually he met a gentleman by the name of Joe Simon. And contrary to the popular belief, as Carlos had just mentioned, co-created Captain America along with Joe Simon. Stan Lee had nothing, zero, zip, nada to do with Captain America's creation. He wrote a little text story in issue number 3 or something like that. 3. Right.
Where Captain America throws his shield for the first time.
Exactly. So, and Martin Goodman once gave Stanley created for and gave himself and Stan whole credit for creating Captain America. It's the kind of sleaze bags that Simon and Kirby were up against. But as you can see here, this is a comic book #1 of Captain America that sold well over 1 million copies. Matt, think of that. Think of that in perspective of today, my friends. Millions of copies, not just over. It was well over 1 million. It's, in other words, it's sold off of one rack. Then probably most Marvel comics sell out of 1 or 2 shops now, or DC. Again, it obviously didn't have the competition. I understand that, but let's be fair. Let's perspective, but still, you can't. We've already seen an example today of starting out of the show why they don't sell new comics. So anyway, this, as you can see, man, at the time, can you imagine? You already if you're young and who likes comics, and you see this beautiful thing on a stand. You got a dude in a red, white, and blue costume punching the shit out of Hitler. Who doesn't buy that, man?
Well, let me
Who doesn't buy it, buddy?
I'm down with that, and plus, as you well know, I'm guessing you are probably going to talk about that as well. Jack and Joe, both Jewish fellas, they put this on the cover. They thought it was the correct thing to do because of the injustices that were going on, and people in America threatened them because there were people in America that actually thought Hitler was right.
Funny you should mention that.
Yeah, I was like, what? And one of the cool things is the mayor of New York heard about this, and he said, don't worry, guys, I will protect you because I think you're right. And I think that is such a cool thing that Joe and Jack were so brave that they fought for their ideals, for their beliefs, and they were not cowards.
Well, it's funny you should mention that.
Yes.
Because when I met, when I met Kirby in '90, that was the second time, and we spent a lot of time with him. He told us a story about how at the Marvel, there was Timely offices back then. It was right before he went off to war. By the way, Jack Kirby, of course, as we all know, was a war hero who fought in the war, fought in World War II, a decorated war veteran and a combat veteran and a hero. And you can, by the way, go to Amazon and look up Jack Kirby at War, a great documentary about his war exploits and how the war affected his life. I want to throw that out there. If you've not gone to see that, Amazon Prime, it's a great documentary, and it's really inspiring. And man, it tells you what Jack went through in the war. It's incredible. But he said that they got threatened at the Timely offices by a bunch of basic Nazis down in the downstairs, and Jack was ready to go fight these bitches. And they wouldn't let him. Everybody stopped him from going there and fighting those suckers. Jack was a little dude, but he was a fighter. He came from Hell's Kitchen. He grew up in Hell's Kitchen. There's a new book that I got that I'm just now starting to read. It's called The Long Legendary Life of Jack Kirby. I forget the name of it, by Tom Scioli, and it's really interesting.
There's this comic book by Fred Van Lente. I don't know if you read it. It's called Comic Book Comics.
Yes, I don't think I have that.
It's really good. You can get it really cheap in Comixology. It's like $1 each issue.
Nice.
And the first issue, or like the preview, it's free, and it's all about Jack, right? And it details a few stories of him. And one that I liked is that he was such a tough kid when he was growing up, that he would go to different boroughs in New York to fight kids and kind of get to know their fighting style. Improve and kick better ass.
Here's an interesting question now that we have from RN Feliciano, and you'll with your memory you'll be able to cover it better.
Sure.
Didn't they first retcon? I think he's a little mixed. I'm not exactly sure what he's saying at the beginning, but didn't they retcon? In the 60s, they said that the World War II stories were fake, and in the 60s, World War II stories were canon.
Yeah.
If you're talking about that Steve Englehart stuff.
I remember something in the trade paperback now by it's a Captain America trade paperback by what's his face, Roger Stern and John Byrne, collecting their stories. Those like 6-7 issues that they did together, beautiful issues. It's called the trade paperback is called War and Remembrance. It's really good.
Oh, that was a great run. Oh my god, too short.
Really good run, short run, but really great run. and in one issue they talk about his origin, and somewhere along the line they changed his identity. He was no longer Steve Rogers. He was like Steve Martin or something like that.
Yes.
So some different name. He wasn't from Brooklyn. He wasn't a war hero. He was a lawyer. They like just changed his entire
Yeah,
backstory.
I hate that crap. God, I hate it.
They changed his entire backstory, and then it came back to being his original backstory. And there was a big, huge gap of logic of why was he like a war a war private, because he wasn't a war hero. He was a private in the army who acted dumb, so people would know he was Captain America. And then
Yes.
he was a lawyer there for a while, and then he went back to being an army veteran, a World War II veteran. And Roger Stern kind of put everything in context. Apparently, he needed to go deep undercover, so they brainwashed him. If you read that trade paperback, War and Remembrance, it's really easy to get, and you should get it because that is
It's great.
it's Burns.
It's cheap too. What a good run that is.
Yeah. It's Byrne at his best. I mean, his art is beautiful in that issue. And Roger Stern, I always thought he was very underrated as a writer. I think he always did solid stories, and just not a lot of people know him. And he just did very, very solid stories. His Spider-Man, Amazing Spider-Man run is very solid. These short issues of Captain America are very solid. His Avengers run is really good and just very, very, very solid. And for some reason, just people don't admire him. It's just the same thing that happens with Chuck Dixon. I think he's one of the best Batman writers, but nobody gives him props. And I think he's a very good Batman writer. I mean, because he brought back the detective side of Batman. He brought back a lot of supporting characters and stuff like that. It's pretty good.
No, absolutely, man. No.
They moved around. But what I was talking about, this comic book called Comic Book Comics that I recommend everybody read. It's just the story behind the scenes of comic books, just from like their inception all the way to like the 80s. You know, it's a really, really fun comic. It's a really fun read. And what they were also saying about Jack is that when he was in the army, every time he made the mistake of telling people that he was an artist, they would tell him, okay, then you should go to the town that we're about to invade and do a sketch of where all the Germans are, so we know where to attack them.
That was a dangerous ass job right there, brother.
Send him alone to do this. And he had to sit there and like draw everything out. The poor man. And it just it of course also details all the fights that he had with Stan Lee, and every time he had to go back to Marvel with, hate to say it like that, but with his tail between his legs. And not because he was a loser, because he was never a loser. He was an amazing artist, just an amazing man, and just a great human being all around. But sadly, I think Marvel was home because he was the architect of that home. And those characters are closer to him, that even though I do love the fourth world characters that he created at DC, I think, having him draw Darkseid, having him draw Orion is okay. Having him draw Captain America, Thor, Fantastic Four, that's amazing.
Well, that's my favorite. But he was
even drawing Batman is not as cool as him drawing any of the Marvel heroes, especially like the Thing. He had his Thing is.
It's amazing. Absolutely. Well, and by the way, we should point out that Simon and Kirby at the time, work didn't pay a whole lot on comic books back then, even though that comic book did sell a whole lot. So they kind of moonlighted on Timely and kind of double timed them a little bit. And both of them, a lot of people don't know this, the very first issue of the Captain Marvel comic by C.C. Beck, the Fawcett, very first issue, Simon and Kirby actually worked on that in secret. They rented a hotel room to work on that one. And then some stupid little kid, a little annoying little brat that worked there because his uncle's his sister's uncle or whatever, who was Martin Goodman, ratted him out, and his name was Stanley Lieber. You guys may know who that is, but a little bit of fun trivia for you guys out there. Captain America, though he did debut in 1940. Was 41, something like that. But anyway, he did debut then.
It has to be 40 because 41.
40.
Yeah, it has to be 40 because in 41,
Right.
the US started the
Right. So
war, and,
Cap was
and nobody knew what was going on in
40. Sorry, it was 40. I just sometimes forget the year.
You were
He was
right.
not the very first American flag wearing superhero. Not the first patriotic superhero. That actually goes to Archie Comics' The Shield, Lancelot Strong, by about less than a month, I think. So they didn't actually predate him. But Simon and Kirby's second patriotic character creation came in the 50s, and he was called Fighting American. This was they had left, they left Timely at the time. There still was no Marvel Comics yet. They weren't called Marvel Comics, and they worked on a character called Fighting American, and it was kind of it was sort of a parody book. It was satire.
Let me tell you,
anyway,
I liked the way Rob Liefeld did him better than Simon.
I'm sure you did.
and Kirby.
Vomit all over yourself while you read it. Yeah, but you're right. The chest here is nowhere near big enough, and he has too many teeth.
You should put a side-by-side comparison.
Oh, God, I probably should have thought of that. And Rob's cap, for that matter. Oh,
the Rob Liefeld stuff it's hilarious.
Oh,
It's so 90s, beyond
man.
90s. It's beyond 90s.
Yeah. But yeah, this was actually interesting. The Latino Slant, my buddy Paulie. You're right. He said interesting. Kirby in WW2, Tolkien in WW1. Amazing creators from their suffering, horrors, and well, that's true. It's very true. Again, check that documentary out, Kirby at War, if you get a chance. It's great. Good point, Paulie. Absolutely. But anyway, we're going to get to the Fantastic Four, but you can't really do it justice. What?
Do you know you were talking about patriotic heroes? Did you mention why he had to change his shield?
Change the shield? I mean, no, if you want to throw that in there, if you do it quickly.
There was an Archie Comics character. It wasn't called Archie Comics back then, but it was, I think it was RLJ or something?
It was RLJ, if I remember, Family Comp, one of those, yeah.
It's Archie Comics, and basically they had a character called the Shield, and he was, of course, a patriotic character that predated Captain America, and his, what would you call it, his torso, if you will,
was a shield.
Was a shield, a triangular-shaped shield. So when they saw that Timely had put the same type of shield on Captain America, but on his arm, not as part of his chest piece, they threatened to sue. Timely was a very tiny company back then.
Yes.
They couldn't fight it. So they said, just change the shield. And in the second issue that you had there, they changed the shield from triangular to a round shape, which of course looks a lot cooler. I like it. In fact, wait, give me 1 second. You can inspire me to do something. Let me see.
I got you.
Is this not perfect? Come on.
Oh my God, it's beautiful, man. Oh my. Look at that, folks.
Come on.
Yeah.
And
God damn.
It looks cool. Plus,
who else got one?
What?
Jack's got one too.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, I love my shield, of course. I use it with my Captain America cosplay because yes, I'm a Mexican that cosplays Captain America and proud to do it. By the way, MPS. But the funny thing is, there was a convention here in Mexico, like 3 years ago, and Stan Lee was here, right? And a lot of people went with this shield and had Stan sign the shield.
Right.
And I was livid.
It sucks.
And a friend of mine, and a friend of mine.
Oh my God.
I have a friend who's a cosplayer. He's a really nice guy, but he doesn't know too much about comic books. He cosplays Iron Man, but he doesn't know anything
shit about him.
Doesn't know
That's a
anything.
lot of cosplayers, probably.
He does not know anything about Tony Stark or
He
Iron
knows
Man.
about movies.
Never read a comic book. He's only seen the movies, but he loves, the character, or at least he loves the movies with the character.
Yeah.
And we were talking about, what we saw at the convention. He goes, "Oh, did you see all those guys with the shield, just like yours, and they were signed by Stan Lee?" And I said,
Oh,
"Never have
never.
have my shield signed by that guy." And
Oh,
I didn't say guy. I said another word.
right.
May he rest in peace. And my friend goes,
Yeah.
"But why?" And he goes, "Because he had nothing to do with the creation of Captain America. He had nothing to do."
Nothing. Oh my God.
And my friend looked at me with these wonders out, like, "What do you mean?" And I'm like, "Dude, you're killing me.
Oh my God.
You are killing me."
But dude, at least he wasn't cosplaying Iron Man. The guys cosplaying Cap are really dickheads. I'm sorry. Not to be personal, but Jesus Christ.
I mean,
Know your character.
yes, that's basic. That's basic. Let me tell you something. I've never seen an anime in my life, but when I cosplay Goku, I
Okay.
did my homework.
Yeah.
Cool.
I didn't know you cosplayed Goku, but yeah, I don't know about him either.
Dude.
But if you're going to cosplay a character, I think you should at least read up on him a little bit. I mean,
Basic stuff, yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, the thing is here in Mexico, it's very divided. The comic book readers and the people that like comic book movies to the people that like anime and manga, it's very divided. It's like two worlds, and they're in constant fighting. And there are conventions like that are more comic book based or for comic book readers, and there are conventions that are more guided to or to cater to manga and anime fans. And when I go to those conventions and I would wear like, I don't know, a Nightwing a cosplay or a Captain America cosplay, wasn't very appreciated, except Batman. Batman is loved in
yes,
everywhere.
of course,
Everywhere.
naturally.
And I said, maybe instead of fighting, and having and going to like a superhero character or a comic book character to one of those anime type conventions, I should just go as an anime character. And I asked around, "Hey, who do you think I look like?" And everybody said, "You look like Goku." I'm like, okay, I guess because I've certain amount of muscle mass.
Yes, indeed. By the way, I wrote this a couple years back as a tribute from the heart to Jack. I'm no poet, but I'm sorry. I just had to. And it is thanks, Jack, for all the fantastic heroes you gave us, all of the astonishing tales you told us, and all of the uncanny worlds you showed us. I mean, thank you, Jack. This one's for you, buddy. And I mean, it's just what he's done for so many people, not just the creations. He is, and we'll talk about that one day on our future stream, legendary. He and his wonderful wife, Roz, for taking in kids who would travel all over the country back in the late 60s, early 70s, out to California where he lived. They would hitchhike out there in some cases. Some of them became comic writers and artists later themselves, taking them in, treating them like their own kids, and being really nice to them, showing them around the studio and stuff. Mm-hmm. Salt of the earth, really wonderful people. And now to another stone and basically stepping stone towards Jack's, the big one. We're getting there to the Fantastic Four. We're just kind of doing some like slight highlights, some stepping stones we'll up to, going upwards toward in Jack's career, the ladder a little bit. Before you get to the Fantastic Four, though, you gotta make a stop. Fighting America, Captain America's the biggest. We're not. By the way, there are other things too. The romance comics he did, the Western comics he did, the monster comics. All those are. Kept the comics industry afloat while comic books were under assault by Congress and what have you. But again, that's all very evolved stories. Before Kirby created the Fantastic Four with Stan, he and Joe Simon created a comic book that kind of was the basis for the Fantastic Four, and it's right here.
Challengers of the Unknown.
The Challengers of the Unknown, my friends, and I'm sure many of you are familiar with this. If you're not, don't
you think that's kind of like the nail in the coffin when it comes to Stan Lee taking credit for everything?
Yeah, he certainly had very little. I mean, look at them. Look at them. I mean, yes, they don't have superpowers. There's usually 5 of them. I just grabbed an older cover, an older Kirby Simon cover. It's kind of tough to find a bunch of the Kirby covers he did back
I
then.
know.
This was some.
Do that once.
Yeah, this was kind of his early work for DC National. And what can you say? It was basically a science fiction, comic book. That this is the basis for the FF.
Yeah, they were adventurers, much like the FF.
Yeah.
Oh, and I have further proof that, of course, Stan Lee is a liar, right?
Yeah.
Here we have pretty much the Fantastic Four, right?
Yes.
Okay. So many years before Journey into Mystery, I forget which number it was, but many years before Journey into Mystery, where it was the Marvel debut of Thor, Jack Kirby did a story in his Sandman comic where Thor is featured.
Yes, that's right.
So you can see that Jack had Thor on his mind.
Oh yeah, absolutely. He loved mythology. He loved the Norse and Greek mythology.
So,
Loved it.
But of course, if you ask, I remember I saw an interview with Stan Lee saying, I wanted to have a god in the comics, but I thought, Hercules. Everybody does Hercules. Maybe do something else. Norse mythology. I'm like, dude, no.
No, it was not Stan. Sorry. Again, I know it's like pissing on Santa Claus for a lot of people, but
we're not trying to, the man is dead. We're not trying to
no
down literally. It's just, to me, it's annoying that he never gave proper credit until I think the last few months of his life. He kind of was a little giving credit.
He did. Every now and then he would slip with it, but
yeah. But a lot of people just don't know and don't care to know. And I'm sorry if you call yourself a comic book reader, a comic book lover, a comic book fan, a comic book geek boy, whatever. If you call yourself that, you gotta know the story. It's like the people that like Star Trek and never seen original Trek. I mean,
yeah, exactly.
You may think it's dated, you may not like it, you may not love it, but you gotta at least know about it.
Absolutely, good point.
Absolutely
right.
Know that's where it started. That was the beginning. If you love something so much, it shouldn't be a chore to find out more. My God, I rhymed. There you go.
Well done. Have respect for what went before. That's something that's always bothered me. Those with no respect for the things that you might not. Again, like you said, you may not be big on the older stuff. It may not appeal to you, which I don't get. But that's one thing. And we were all kids once. That's kind of a kid mentality in some ways. But have respect for what came before. And a lot of people don't. I'll tell you that. But in 1961. The world, the comic book world changed and will never be the same. This cover, I'm going to say it might be number 1 with Action Comics, number 1 being up to, as far as the most, we should use the word mocked or parodied cover in the history of comics. Action Comics 1's been done, but how many variations on theme or comic books based on this cover have you seen? That's just a side point to it, but I mean, it's amazing. It's that iconic.
Yeah. Well, one thing that I have to say about remember I was telling you about, I was reading Planetary?
Yes.
Reading Planetary?
Excellent book.
Yeah. And the thing is, the Fantastic Four were such game changers, such an important moment in the history of comic books, that the bad guys in Planetary are the Fantastic Four. Of course, he's not saying that the characters were bad, but he wanted his evil characters to be such an important part of the history, of the heroic history. That he goes, well, who else can it be but the Fantastic Four? And the thing is that the Justice League came before it, and so did the Justice Society. And I love those characters, and I love those
Well, yeah,
The
sure.
Fantastic Four were completely original because you have the Thing, you have a monster who's a hero, and you
I think
rarely ever had that. I mean, even if you say, well, in Justice League we have a short person, in Justice Society we have a short person, and in the Justice League we have
Alien.
yeah. But
Martian.
the thing is, John Johns can look human, and the Atom may be short, but he's not, deformed. The Thing is deformed beyond humanity, and yet he's the most human. Beautiful.
Well, absolutely. Look, let's be frank about these characters for a minute too. And here's one of the things. Um, they're wonderful characters, and they're not except for one of them, the Thing. And I'm biased. I love him. He's my all-time favorite character. But just strictly regarding their powers, they're not very original. You got Plastic Man. You got the Human Torch already been there, and there wasn't a character, a woman, in fact, with invisibility powers, Miss Invisible Scarlet or something. I forget her name. So their powers are not that new in terms of those three. What made them new is, their personalities. Instead of the android Jim Hammond, whom I love, this was a kid, the younger brother of the lovely Sue Storm. And instead of just silly Plastic Man, yes, his powers were silly. You had the smartest man in the world in Reed Richards. Then you had the big man on campus, athlete, jet, test pilot, war hero Benjamin J. Grimm, turning into a lump of orange. At first, not even rocks, just like a big lump.
And now that you mentioned something, he was the big man on campus. He was a football star. He was a war hero, flight. What was it? Was like a aviator.
Both he and Reed were in the war at this point.
But even though he was big and muscular and strong, he was never a bully. Never used his.
No, he was a good guy. He was a good guy through and through. Let me tell you why I love Benjamin J. Grimm. But at the time, the four were pretty ground. Oh, it was totally groundbreaking. This book was groundbreaking. And by the way, the first two issues, there are no costumes. Technically, they only ever really had uniforms, but there were no uniforms until fans started writing and said superheroes should have uniforms or costumes. So they didn't have them until issue 3, just as a side note. But what's interesting about Ben Grimm is in the early issue. If you ever go back and read the early issues of the Fantastic Four, they're very rough, yes. But Ben is angry. Ben is scary. Ben is not friendly, happy-go-lucky. He developed over the years. He's teetering on that brink. Is he going to go bad? Is he going to turn into a villain? Because usually in this kind of fiction, when somebody ends up deformed into a monster with, great strengths or what have you, usually they end up as villains. Or it was bad. This is why Ben J. Grimm's such a wonderful character. He walked that plank. And of course, later when he met Alicia, it helped a lot to ground him. But he had the family of the Fantastic Four, whom he was really pissed off at, by the way, especially Reed, for the long time. And that was what was so interesting about this comic to people. They were people with powers. As much as, look, you and I adore the DC heroes. We really do. At the time, they weren't written with a whole lot of depth at the time. These characters were conceived of and written with that kind of depth. It's why Marvel sold so well. And that's why this is probably the most important comic book ever in history of comics right here. Next to Action #1, Detective 27. It's right there with groundbreaking comic books that changed everything.
Yes. The world was never the same.
Yep, and the world will never be the same.
Let me tell you something. Just like you mentioned, Action and Detective started the era of the superhero, the age of the superhero. When this came out, it started the idea of a human being acquiring powers, which is kind of different because, Batman and Superman, the moment, either they acquired their superpowers or the tragedy that befell them forced them to become more than human, whatever, they were perfect. If you look at all the DC heroes, which again I love just like you, they were perfection personified. They never made mistakes. They never got angry. They never lost their temper. They were always sure of their way. But if you look at every Marvel hero, maybe with the exception of Captain America, who
Yes.
he was a scrawny little kid, he always knew what he needed to do, and he needed to be a hero, not for glory, not for fame, because it was the right thing. And we saw that was perfectly shown in the movie Captain America: The First Avenger, which I love and I've seen
Yes.
many
Love it.
times.
Wonderful.
But the thing is, getting back to this, all the Marvel heroes were flawed human beings, so you felt closer to them. And going back to what we started with, that stupid Wonder Woman cover, no matter if you were black, red, green, yellow, whatever color you were, whatever ethnicity you were, you were human, and these characters were human. So even if you were not from Queens, New York, you could understand what was going on with Peter Parker. You know, even if you weren't from Brooklyn, the thing is from Brooklyn, right? Or the Bronx?
He's from Yancey Street is in
The Bronx, right?
yeah, I think so. Or
Yeah.
is it Hell's Kitchen? Or no, it's not Hell's
Yeah. So you didn't have to be from the Bronx to understand what he was going through. You didn't have to be the smartest man in the world to understand how Reed feels so detached from humanity, because he's always in his brain, and he needs Sue to feel human. He needs her love. And when he loses her, he loses everything. And that's been shown in a few comic books that I love as well. And these heroes were so. And this comic book, as well as the other Kirby Stan Lee collaborations, laid the groundwork. And everybody else was able to pile on more and more and more stuff that just made it more intricate, more complex, and a lot more, just a lot more fun and just layered. You look at Submariner. Sure, he's a criminal to the people of the surface, but to the people of Atlantis, he's a hero because he's protecting them. So the character is very complex.
Although he was a hero during World War II, of course.
He was a hero, but again,
very.
He started out as a reluctant hero because he didn't love the surface, but then he fell in love with a Earth woman, a certain woman, and then he started fighting for freedom and liberty, whatever. Because he also knew that the Nazis were going to start with the surface and then they were going to go on.
Right. Yes.
So of course he knew he had what the enemy of my enemy is my friend. And that's why he started helping the surface. But here, in all those Fantastic Four comics, he was not a simple villain. Doctor Doom is not a simple villain. Magneto is not a simple villain. They're all very layered. They're very complex. And when you look at the DC heroes and the DC villains, they started out as very simple characters. You love them. I rooted for them. I still love them. And Batman, I've loved all my life, and I will love to the end of time. But I know Captain America is a more complex hero. I know Johnny Storm is a more complex hero. Just in Fantastic Four number 4, he leaves the Fantastic Four because he's bickering. That's such a teenager thing to do. I could understand him because I would also get mad at my family. I would also get into fights with my dad and just want to leave home. And Johnny Storm did it. You did not see that. And you would see the Justice Society sitting around at a table, just having fun and just talking like they were lifelong friends. In the Justice League, everybody knew each other's identity. Everybody. Nobody had any secrets from anybody else. You go to the Avengers, and nobody knows anybody's secret. Nobody knows that Tony Stark is Iron Man. Everybody thinks it's his bodyguard, right?
Yeah.
Nobody knew Thor was actually a lame doctor. Donald. Oh my God, I forgot his last name. Don Blake.
Don Blake.
There you go. Let's see who else. Well, everybody knew Bruce Banner, but the Hulk, another complex character. He's his own worst enemy. It's brilliant. And I've named everything that is Stanley and uh, Jack Kirby joint, and they were fantastic together. Fantastic.
Oh, look, I mean, it was just incredible, And you talk about the Hulk because you could spend forever on the Fantastic Four, and that wouldn't be fair to other characters. But you got the Hulk, like you say. Again, they did take away from a lot of used concepts, just like they did for the FF. I mean, it's Jekyll and Hyde, pure and simple, but they add their own spin to it.
That's it.
And they make.
It doesn't matter that if you're inspired by something, that's okay. But you can be inspired by something, but make sure it's your creation. And this is it's Jekyll and Hyde, it's Frankenstein's monster, but it has its own spin. You can't say, oh, they just stole everything. They didn't.
No, I'm just saying that there's very few. There's a lot of truth to the statement that there's nothing new under the sun. Last week, when my good buddies Mark and I were doing our top, counting on our top 25 favorite superheroes, we both had the Hulk very high on our top list. And one of the things we both talked about with the Hulk is, even though he's quote unquote a monster, there's still enough Bruce Banner in him where he always does the right thing and he's a hero, even though he never doesn't want to be one. And that was one of the wonderful things about the Hulk.
No, did you
I love Hulk.
One of the guys here at the chat said something that I thought was very interesting. Do you read what RR said?
What was it?
The human condition is the same regardless of language or skin color. The ancient Greeks understood this, and Western civilization is built on this idea that it's not the blood but the culture that bind us. I wish Marvel and DC now would remember that, because that's what makes good stories. The human condition,
Yes.
How human interaction. They don't need to be fishing for this diversity thing. If you're gonna make a black superhero, you can do it, and he can come fantastic. Because I love Luke Cage, I love the Falcon. Hell, I even love Bill Foster, Black Goliath. I think he's a fun character. Black Lightning is one of my favorite characters, and I love Batman and the Outsiders, where he was a very prominent part. You can do black characters, but they don't have to be forced like Miles Morales. They can be interesting and original, And even though I hate Miles Morales as he's written in the comic books, I love that movie, the Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. That was really good.
The only one didn't like it that much. It was okay.
That was really good. It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun.
You can't. You're unfair if you go to FF and then you go to Hulk, the big names, and jump to Avengers or others without at least touching on Tales to Astonish. Ant-Man's. This is one of Kirby's earliest creations. People kind of just pass over him. Hank Pym and Janet Van Dyne. Ant-Man and the Wasp.
Love them.
Love them. They were all. They were both on my big list.
Hank Pym is one of my favorite losers ever. Because the man, he manages to lose every time.
He is that. And
he always comes back.
The true creator of Ultron, by the way. Screw you. You.
But the thing is, to me, what I love about the character is he loses, he gives up, but he finds the strength to go on. He comes up with a new identity. He goes on. He succeeds for a while. He loses again. Doesn't matter. Comes back again. I love that about Hank Pym. And I know Stan and Jack didn't do that with the character, but they got the ball rolling.
Yes. I mean, it was done by other writers later, yeah.
Yeah, but they got the ball rolling because he admits I think it was in a what was it, Tales to Astonish, where after he joins the Avengers, he goes, I need to stand out if I'm going to be surrounded by Thor, Iron Man, and Hulk. I can't be tiny. So he becomes Giant Man. And later he becomes Goliath. So all this low self-esteem that he had was established right after Avengers, where he says, I can't compete. I got to be better. And the thing is, Wasp never said that because she has huge self-esteem. So she said, I don't need to be bigger. I can just be small. And she even became one of the best leaders of the Avengers later. And she was always an important part of the Avengers. Hell, if you buy what happens in Secret Wars, the Wasp single-handedly beat the X-Men. So there you go.
Yeah. Well, I love them, and the thing is, when the Avengers first started out, again, it's funny how you would think it would have been the Avengers, then somebody like the FF or the X-Men, because they're more like the Justice League, really, for Marvel in terms of that. But no, FF, of course, predates them. But the Avengers, man, I tell you what, I don't know. It's a strange teaming at first. And what's still weird to me to this day? Look, I like, with some reservations, I like the MCU movies. And not all of them. They have a lot of faults, right? But they're fine. Yeah. I mean, certainly they're way better than they could have been. I mean, they could have been really worse.
Well, let me tell you something. They're a lot better than Batman versus Superman and Justice League.
I mean, again, I like them, but I have my issues. But one of the funny things about them to me is I like the Hulk in them. It's great. Yeah. But I don't think of the Hulk as an Avenger. And every time he's running around with the Avengers in these movies, it's fine, by the way. I'm not that big of a fanboy, but I'm saying I just don't think of him as an Avenger. To me, when I think Hulk, he's running around with the Defenders or by himself. Because he was only in the Avengers for a very short time early on, and I think Kirby and others decided he really wasn't a good fit for a team.
Well, yeah, but it's not so much the problem of the MCU. The problem is just back in the 90s, Marvel sold all their rights to the characters, and they can't make a solo Hulk movie because if they make a solo Hulk movie, Universal has the right to distribute that film, and Disney doesn't want to share, the distribution of those films. So they're forced. That kind of forced them.
Yeah, that's fine. It's not a
way, the only way they could do the Planet Hulk,
right?
Storyline, which is awful, by the way. Let me just say that and save everybody from reading it. Planet Hulk is awful.
Sucks. The animated movie's better.
If you've seen the movie Spartacus, it's basically a retelling of Spartacus, and not only that, it's not even original because, and you probably remember this. It's I think back in the 70s, if I'm correct. The Hulk went to the microverse
to meet Jarella, and he came. It was a total rip off of that. Planet Hulk was a rip off.
Instead of going to the microverse, he went to outer space. But it's the same thing. He becomes a barbarian. He has to fight. He falls in love with a woman from there who's the queen. No, she's Queen Jarella, right?
Yeah, Jarella. Yeah, tragic story there.
Same thing,
dude. That comic made me cry when she was killed.
She died. She comes to Earth to be with the Hulk and she died.
Yeah, it's
spoiler.
Spoiler. I almost cried like a baby.
People here in Mexico love Planet Hulk, and when I tell them, it's just a ripoff of the Jarella storyline, they go, "Yahoo!"
They never read that. But if you do have to do Planet Hulk, at least watch the animated movie. It takes up less of your time, and it's better than the shitty comic. At least it's more entertaining. Animated movie was sort of
the comic goes on for way.
So did World War Hulk, but that's another story.
But that was just horrible. Only the art is good, but everything else is horrible.
But the Hulk wasn't a great fit for the Avengers. Later, he was perfect for the Defenders because Doc Strange had to manipulate them all the time, and it was funny as shit. They were always called the non-team. So whenever I see him, as a geek, I go, "Oh man, I wish they'd do a Defenders film." Jesus, how good would it be to see Hulk? They got Doc Strange, they got Hulk. I don't like their version of Valkyrie, but they could do.
Well, the thing is, there is they don't. It's only one Valkyrie. There's a bunch of Valkyries.
I
So
understand that, but I like the Marvel one. But
no, but the Marvel one, she's not even Brunhilde,
I know,
and the one in Defenders is Brunhilde. So you can
I
you can
know.
move things around. They won't do it, but you can.
Well, funny side note to that: the great Bruce Timm Justice League cartoon of the early aughts did an homage to the Defenders. An episode
Yes.
of that was a lot of fun. Yeah,
Dr.
we had
Solomon
Doctor Fate. Solomon Grundy was Hulk. Doctor Fate was Doctor Strange. Aquaman was Submariner, and Hawk Girl was
Valkyrie.
was Valkyrie. It was
Yeah.
wonderful. A lot of fun. But yeah, you got the Avengers right there. This was I don't think I brought a cover of number 4 to the forefront, but of course I must
cover ever. That's another cover that's been parodied and imitated a lot.
right. I thought I brought it up, but I didn't. But anyway,
It's a beautiful cover.
Yeah, but this also was a great Avengers cover. Not too much.
Oh God, yes.
Those of you, this is going to sound funny. Any of you heard of Cap's Kooky Quartet? Yes, comics were goofy back then. Cap's Kooky Quartet was when they changed the roster down to Cap, Scarlet Witch, Jerk Off Quicksilver, my hate, and Hawkeye. And
I'm going to tell you a story because one thing that I love about this issue, it's all the big hitters leave. They have Cap stays alone and he continues with the Avengers, and the Avengers cry becomes really relevant here. Avengers Assemble has gained so much meaning and so much power over the years. I just love that, right?
Yeah.
The most amazing moment for me. Now, this is really silly. One of the most amazing moments for me was right after Avengers Endgame. I got invited to a convention, and I know you're gonna be mad at me. I know, but I had to do it. Stan Lee had just died, or was really really sick. He was like in the hospital.
Okay.
Avengers Endgame had come out, so everybody
he was already gone by then. He died in December of 2018.
So the Avengers Assemble yell was very prominent. Everybody knew it here in Mexico. Everybody knew it everywhere in the world. So I got invited to a convention because they were doing an homage to Stan Lee, right?
Right.
So what they wanted to do was show a bunch of scenes from the MCU movies, right? And as they're showing the scenes, cosplayers would come out dressed as those characters, right? So they got a bunch of cosplayers together, and they asked me to be Captain America. And again, every time they ask me to be Captain America, I'm very proud to personify Captain America because he's not, like I said, I'm Mexican, but he's not like tied to just one country. He represents, humanity.
It represents the ideal of Western civilization in general.
Yes. Sure. Liberty and justice for all. Just
absolutely
the dream that can be anybody. So I'm always very proud to represent Captain America.
For sure.
And one of the coolest moments was when the Avengers came out. I came out with the Avengers, and then when they showed the scenes from the Captain America movies, I came out alone as Captain America, and I yelled to the crowd, "Okay, everybody, say it with me!" And I go, "Avengers!" And everybody yelled with me, "Assemble!" And that was a really good moment. So of course I put the shield down, and I saluted the crowd, and everybody clapped, and I was like, "Oh my God, I'm Captain America!" I don't know.
Yeah, I love it, man.
And the one thing that I can say about this is, I'm a very old man, and at that moment, I went back to being that 5-year-old, 6-year-old that was reading Captain America. I mean, in the Avengers. And that's the one thing that I can say about Jack and Stan and Steve Ditko and Bill Finger and Bob Kane, Jerry Siegel, Joe Shuster. They made us feel like kids again. They made us dream again. They made us feel just all this awe again. And I don't see that in comic books now.
No.
I don't read any comic book that I read now. I go, oh, whatever. It doesn't excite me anymore. This issue excited me. Issue number 4 of the Avengers excited me. That issue excited me. I didn't know who Captain America was because I live in Mexico. I go, Captain America lives again? Who's Captain America? The moment I read his introduction and he's able to evade Mjolnir, not be afraid of all those characters, and they can't even capture him inside a submarine. My God, this man is something else. And I became a Captain America fan immediately. And he's the one that made them a team. They were not a team. They were just a bunch of brawlers. He made them a team.
He did. He showed him how to fight and everything. Our buddy, my buddy Paulie, Latino Slammer, Carlos, is Captain Mexican American. Remember, I used to call you Captain Mexico all the time.
Yeah.
One of the nicer things
I would take that to my grave.
One of the nicer things I used to call him, by the way, Paulie, because he is a rock.
Yes, I love Captain America. In fact, I'm just waiting for another movie to come out, or another convention to, because now we're like stuck at home. But I wish there would be another convention so I can cosplay him again. I'd really like to be Captain America.
I love him, and it's just wow. We made number 4 on my all-time list there. So, I'm in love with the guy, and he's great. And
Captain America.
Yeah, he's Cap. And the other great things Kirby did at the time, folks, that you may be familiar with. I have a confession, an unpopular opinion here, folks. I didn't, everyone's seen the cover of X-Men 1. I couldn't find a good copy of it, actually. It's weird. But everyone's seen it. I could find a bigger one. But anyway, this is a Kirby cover of X-Men. My big confession is I like the X-Men.
Yes.
But I've never been like a huge X-Men enthusiast. And they are, look, I respect their popularity. Actually, they didn't have that popularity when these were the X-Men.
Nobody cared. Not even the creators. Not even Stan yet.
No, they didn't really. But they were interesting, but oddities at best. And
I think what made them very interesting and very different, even in the Marvel universe, and of course very different to the DC universe characters, they were students. We had never seen that. We had seen grown men ally themselves to fight injustice. We had never seen young kids be taught to fight injustice. So that was really cool. And also, they have to fight for the people that actively hate and fear them.
Yeah, they were a great concept. I mean, there's no question about it.
Stan and Jack didn't do anything with it, but they laid the groundwork for people like Roy Thomas and Neil Adams, and of course Chris Claremont and all his
Claremont, no question about it. Yeah, I mean, when Len Wein and Claremont brought him back with Giant Size X-Men 1, well, nobody. I mean, they had a whole. That was pretty. I guess. Look, at the time, Marvel was throwing a lot of things against the wall and seeing if they stick, and a lot didn't. Somehow, for some way. And of course, with wonderful artist Dave Cockrum on that book, it took off, man. It took off. People really, really latched onto those new X-Men, and they really did, with a couple of older ones with them.
That's one of the cool things about the early Marvel days. They wouldn't give up on a concept because like Hulk wasn't a huge hit at first.
Nope, 6 issues. He was dead after 6 issues.
But they kept trying. They kept trying, and kept using him until it stuck, and people understood what they were reading. And like what was it? Roy Thomas and Herb Trimpe did a bunch of really good things with that character. So sometimes those concepts, even though they made they would be not that fan favorites at first, they kept trying, and eventually they became huge. And even some character like Iron Man, I mean, he took a long time for him to take off. I think it wasn't until David Michelini and Bob Layton did him with the Demon in the Bottle stuff that he became a huge character. Because, in the beginning, he was just this millionaire philanthropist, egotist, but he wasn't that popular. A lot of people ask me what I thought about Iron Man. I go, well, until Robert Downey Jr. played him, he was not that interesting to me.
Yeah, I always loved him as a character, but he was. I mean, let's face it. Robert Downey Jr. did something totally new with him. He pretty much talked more like Peter Parker than he did Tony Stark. As a wisecracker. Yeah, he kind of recreated him.
Well, I think he was just doing himself. I think he read some of those comic books and he goes, I'll just do myself, because you can see a lot of Robert Downey Jr. in that performance.
Yeah.
So
yeah, well, it was sort of like Marvel. The Marvel style of Spider-Man and some other characters was the snappy, wisecracking style of writing. All of it was embodied by Spider-Man, but they all kind of talk that. Most of a lot of the heroes talk that way, as you know.
Well, the younger ones like Johnny Storm and
Johnny Storm, right? Hawkeye. There were a lot of smart, like a lot of the Beast.
You gotta love Hawkeye. I mean,
he made my list. I mean, I had him on my list last week.
That's one character that I hated when he started, because he was like this like rebellious badass character, but little by little they just started putting so much more stuff on him and then Mark Grunwald did just amazing in his miniseries, and then later I think it was Englehart that made him into a true leader in the West Coast Avengers. And the one thing that I loved is that every time he said something about leadership, he goes, well, Captain America taught me. I'm like, damn, that's so good.
That's right. Oh, yeah.
That's what the Stan and Jack stuff, because, he was always rebellious, but he was always, looking at Cap, and Cap eventually taught him how to be a leader, how to be a man. And he became a great man. He became a great leader. He became a great character.
Well, one of the other things about Captain America, because again, this wasn't a Kirby comic book, but it's still Kirby's creation. That you could go on. You can do a whole show about all the great things about Cap. Even Frank Miller understood something about Captain America. A very dark guy. He never had a care for the lighter side of comic books. One of the my favorite Frank Miller comic book ever is on your wall behind you. You have you have Daredevil Born Again, my favorite Miller story. Yeah. There's a scene in there with Cap. We'll get away, just to touch on Cap one more time, in which there's a bunch of fires going on. There's a big battle between Daredevil and a character called Nuke. The Avengers show up because they've been called out to try. In Hell's Kitchen, this fight's taking place. And there's a storm. It's all chaos going all over. And Miller wrote this. It gives me chills the way, and you know what I'm going. You know where I'm going. Mm-hmm. He wrote the voice of a soldier that could command a god, and he says, "Put these fires out." And there's Thor, a silhouette of Thor, obeying the order of Cap, and then he goes, "And he does command a god." It's just like simple, yeah, but brilliant. And later, Mark Wade's an asshead for those who don't know, but he's written some good comics. One of the best things he ever wrote was his first run with Ron Garney on Captain America. And in the issue where he started out, where everyone thought Cap was dead, you had Hercules. I don't have the speech in front of me. I've had it somewhere, but just to paraphrase, Hercules talking about courage. He was talking about different people, and then he said, on Olympus, when we think of courage, we think of Captain America.
And this is, of course, another egomaniac.
This is Hercules. It's Hercules. The Marvel Hercules, who was a great character, but he's a nut, And yeah, the gods respect Captain America, folks. That's big stuff. That's great, man. Just great stuff.
Well, I mean, come on. You can say whatever you want about the MCU. I didn't particularly like Avengers Endgame, but my favorite scene, and the scene where I really just stood up, is when Mjolnir flies to Captain America.
Oh, look, I had a lot of problems with Endgame, especially after the smell test after a period of multiple viewings. But one thing that will remain wonderful and beautiful, because we were waiting for it, and Thor's reaction to it is priceless. When you see the hammer getting picked up and you realize it's Cap, dude, I about jumped out of my goddamn chair, man. And I'm screaming like an 8-year-old going, wow! I don't know what I was screaming, dude. I was going, oh my god! You couldn't hear me though, because the whole audience was yelling, and it was so. And then it wasn't Thor goes, yes, I knew it. And then if that wasn't bad enough, I mean, in a good way. Later, when Cap goes, Avengers,
Assemble.
I could watch that all day long. You could criticize that battle. Sometimes some of it's too dark. Could have gone on longer. Could have done some different things. It's just still, I watch it every now and then. It's still familiar. Infinity War is a far superior film as a whole, but Endgame has its moments, and that's
character created, what, 1940s?
Yeah,
with a dream. To punch out Hitler.
Yep, goosebumps. I agree. Oh, that was freaking
amazing.
That was freaking amazing. My friend Jobber says, "I wish could have grew up with these comics. I basically started learning about superheroes through the '90s cartoon shows: X-Men, Spider-Man, Batman, Superman. And you could have done a lot worse. And those are pretty great venues there, my friend. So
let me tell you something. Doesn't matter when you start or how you start. The thing is, now that you've started, you owe it to these characters to know their stories, and you owe it to yourself. Because I mean, if you're gonna love comic books, I mean, don't be a poser. It's annoying. I mean, really learn about these comic books. Read those books. It will change your life for the better. It will not be time wasted. You know, time wasted is reading newer comics, reading Dark Knight's Metal, reading the Batman Who Laughs. That's a waste of time.
I hate to keep going on about Cap, man. But again, and I'm going to do a show about superhero cartoons soon. The wonderful Earth's Mightiest Heroes had an episode where Loki pulled a spell on Cap, Iron Man, and Thor, if you remember. He took Thor's powers away. Mm-hmm. He put Iron Man in his old clunky yellow armor without any electrical powers, and he turned Cap into this scrawny pre-serum Steve Rogers.
Doesn't matter.
And they had to fight the Destroyer, dude. A Kirby creation, by the way.
Yeah.
All three of them are Kirby creations. And to fight the Destroyer, all four, if we count Loki and Enchantress, that's five. All right, so they're gonna fight down in the subway, and the only person they got to help them out's Hawkeye. And they said, "You did call for backup, right?" And Hawkeye's like, "Oh, I forgot my communicator. Oh shit." So good. It was so great. Captain America is still leading them because he's not just scrawny Steve Rogers anymore. He still has all that experience in his head.
Right.
And he's still the same hero inside, proving, yes, you need the serum for him to be able to pull off all the physical feats. But the man inside is Cap. And Cap and Iron Man and Hawkeye bring that out of Thor, who has never spent a second of his life as not an ultra-powerful being. He doesn't know how to be a human with frailties, with a broken leg. And they bring that out of him. It's a brilliant episode. I don't know if you remember.
One of the best moments for me in the MCU was in many Captain America appearances, where he's a scrawny little kid, or just a little dweeb, and he's fighting this guy that he started a fight with at the theater because he wouldn't shut up.
Yeah.
And the guy keeps hitting him, and Captain America, he goes, "Why don't you stay down?" He goes, "I can do this all day."
It became a catchphrase now, man.
But he doesn't say it like threatening. He's just stating a fact. He can do that all day. And then when he's fighting Iron Man, and Iron Man is just beating the pulp at him, he goes, "I can do this all day."
And there's the thing. That's the spirit of Marvel. It's not
much like Jack Kirby, who would be beating up people.
Yeah, and Jack was a tiny dude. I mean, he was Steve Rogers. Jack was Ben Grimm, but he was also Steve Rogers.
Well, here RR said something else that again is from one of my favorite Superman cartoons, where Apocalypse invades Earth. He goes, "That's huge. It speaks to the character of the man. In the end, the world doesn't need a god or a Superman, only a brave one."
Yeah,
it's very true.
And that does speak to Marvel. Again, this is the spirit of Marvel. This is not a Kirby complete creation. He had a little bit of hand in him, but take a guy like Daredevil. Daredevil #7, one of the most brilliant comics of the Silver Age or any other age, where Matt Murdock, Daredevil, there are no other superheroes around. You know how convenient sometimes.
When he's fighting Namor?
he fights the Submariner because Submariner's on a rampage, and that's like a flea fighting a friggin' dog, man. And he fights to the very end and gets the crap kicked out of him easily because Namor can slug it out with the Hulk. And the fan, he says, and so when he's got finally Matt Murdock's trying to stop him and he finally passes out. What's that speech? This could apply to Cap or any other true. This is the essence of heroism and why Marvel was so special at the time. He says, I have fought the Fantastic Four, the Avengers, and the Hulk. Yet none of them have shown more courage than you, the most vulnerable of them all. And he, out of honor to honor Daredevil, decided to spare the city and to leave in honor to his fallen foe. Chills. I mean, it's so great, and that's one of the reasons we love comics so much, because we love heroes, even if they're the silly superhero kind. We love them, man. Daredevil 7, dude. Wally Wood.
It's funny. I met a lot of girls here in Mexico. They're like in love with the Joker.
Yuck.
But I mean, they really love the character. I mean, they he's so amazing. He's this, and they like to play cosplay Harley Quinn, or they call themselves Harley, or they identify themselves with Harley.
Later, Harley. Yeah.
And the thing is, when they ask me what I think about when they find out that I'm such a huge comic book fan, he goes, "Well, I don't like him." He goes, "But he's so interesting." I'm like, "Yeah, he may be an interesting villain."
Yes, he's a great character.
A villain.
And you gotta have him. You gotta have him.
I only like heroes.
Yeah.
A hero is defined by his villains, but I only like heroes. I can. The Joker's an amazing villain. So is Magneto. So is Doctor Doom. I like them all. Doctor Octopus, Green Goblin. You can name them. I love them.
You gotta have them. Yeah, they're great. But you're
right.
Even
Craven, I like. But in the end, my list of favorites, there's not one villain there. The only thing you will find are ex-villains. Hawkeye, Namor, of course, Wonder Man, one of my favorites.
Yes,
but never a full villain. I like the fact that one of the things that I like about the Thunderbolts comic is that 3 of those characters decided to, or 3 or 4 of those characters decided to become good guys, because when they saw the other way around, they go, why am I a villain? I always lose and nobody likes me.
Yeah, no, look, I'm with you. Although I will say that we did years ago on the show, we did a top villains list, but it didn't mean we love villains. It means we think these are the best, most interesting villains. It doesn't mean we like them. And we both ended up, we begrudgingly had Doom at 2. We had Joker at 1 because he is the scariest of all the villains.
I always put Doom at 1. Doom is my favorite villain.
I understand that, but Doom doesn't know he's a villain. The Joker doesn't give a shit. He's glad he's a villain.
The reason that I like Doom better.
Oh, he's better.
Yeah, but the reason that I like him, your justification is perfect. I love it too. But my justification of why I think Doom is better, not only because he's a Jack Kirby creation, but Doom can be anybody's villain. He can fight the Fantastic Four, of course, but he can also fight Namor. He could also fight Magneto. He can also fight Punisher, Luke Cage, Spider-Man.
And he doesn't think he's the villain. He thinks he's the hero.
Right. But Joker should only fight Batman. When he fights another hero, it's not the same.
No, it's not.
It's not the same. John Byrne did it with Superman. It was boring. It's a half issue. It's not even a complete issue. It's a half issue.
It was pretty funny on the Justice League cartoon when he was trying to hang out with Luthor and the other villains, and they didn't want anything to do with him. And Injustice, the comic, when they flat cut the Joker out because you can't play with others.
No.
Yeah. And
I like the Joker. I think he's a good villain.
Oh, he's great. Yeah, but I know what you're saying. Yeah. But Doom is oh my god. I mean, let's just look at. I mean, Doc Doom is unquestionably another just fabulous Kirby creation, because, like I was saying, he doesn't think he's the villain.
Nope.
He thinks he's the good guy. He thinks everybody else is bad. And there are many, many different.
He missed a calculation. Yes. We told him that he missed it, he got his face deformed, and he blames Reed.
Yeah, everything's everybody else's fault with Doom.
You gotta love that.
Oh,
You have to love that.
I love him.
The ego in this guy.
Look at that, especially by Kirby. I love that fucking design, man. That's just the greatest. It helps in his Kirby art, but it's just
Mask is great.
bad.
Mask is great. The costume is great. Not the first costume. The first costume was pretty lame. This costume on just beautiful. His the fact that he has all these Doom bots and you never know if it's the real one or not. When he steals the power cosmic, that was an amazing. That actually scared me as a child.
Yes.
I'm like, oh my god, he's so powerful. How will they defeat him? With brains.
Yeah. Yep. Because Reed had to outthink him, and he always outthought him.
He always does. And the thing is, Reed does it without ego.
Right. And he's pretty egotistical, but yeah.
Yeah, and every time Reed wins, he doesn't like shove it in his face, but Doom can't. And one of the recent comics that I liked, it wasn't a great comic book, but I thought it had some fun stuff. Secret Wars, the new Secret Wars, the redone Secret Wars, where the Ultimate Universe and the Earth 616 are colliding, and they're going to destroy each other. And Doom uses the Molecule Man to get the powers of a god, so he can create this new world, this new battle world. And he crowns himself the king. He exiles Reed Richards because he knows Reed will beat him, and he makes Sue his queen, and Valeria and Franklin his children. And I'm like, oh my god, this man is so envious of what Reed has. He will never admit it out loud, but he's so envious. He uses the power of a god, and he forces Reed's wife to be his consort. And this man is a very lonely man, a man with incredible ego and low self-esteem. That he knows there's someone better than him, and he will never best him. It's just, and all these things are right there in those first issues by Stan and Jack.
Yeah. When Doom did that jobber on the FF cartoon of the second season, which is a show in itself, I love that show so much.
Yes.
It was done as the second time he'd stolen it.
Just the second season.
Yeah, it was just the second season. That was the second time he stole his powers as well. But
not ever watched the first season.
No, but makes for a good coaster though. But yeah, that was fantastic, literally and figuratively speaking. There's also a guy named Thor. We got to touch on him just a little bit. We talked about you earlier, the Greek god, the Norse gods, and the Greek gods there. Sure, they've been around a while, but there's something about the superhero Kirby Thor. I love the living fuck out of that costume, man. I love it. I can't get into the later one at all.
You gotta love something about his version of Thor, right? It was very cosmic. It was very grand.
Yes. Oh man, all those grandiose stories, all those sweeping epics that they did. Good God.
Right. But the fun thing is, if you look at like history, the Vikings were not the most educated or cultured what was it, tribe, race, people. And yet when he does it, when Stan and Jack do the Norse gods, they all speak like in Shakespearean English, close to iambic pentameter.
Yeah,
and you gotta say it's so much fun because they're saying, "Oh, thou dost approach me with such disdain," and you're like, "No." They were berserker killers. They were rapists and conquerors and warriors. There were no warrior poets, but who cares? Because history is one thing, fiction is another, and comic books are fiction, and they can take from real life, but they can adapt it, and that's the fun thing. I love Mjolnir. I love the fact that he would let go Mjolnir for 60 minutes. He would turn back into Don Blake, which is such a superhero thing. You know, you're limited by certain
Yeah,
things.
I love that. I love the whole
And,
Don Blake thing, man.
and what I love is that you have the duality, the same duality you have with Superman, where he's so completely powerful in one identity, and in the other, he has to fake weakness. Yes, he's a very good doctor. He's an amazing, MD. He saves lives, but he feels inferior to other men because he has a limp. But as Thor, he's this just amazing, grand, strong hero, and yet he wants the woman of his dream to fall for the human. He doesn't. He does. She doesn't want her to love him for his strength. You know. And again, even though they didn't do this duality so much in the Thor movie, the one thing that I love is when he gets exiled from Asgard and he can't live Mjolnir anymore, so he's not worthy anymore. And you see his pain, and you go, "Oh, hey, Chris Hemsworth wasn't a great actor back then, but he's doing
He's
it."
really great as Thor. Yeah.
Oh, he. I think the more movies he did, the better he got. And right now, I think he's a really, really, really good actor. I think the MCU has turned Thor into a joke for no good reason.
Yes, too much funny. I agree.
But I think there are some good moments with Thor in all over the MCU. But to me, my favorite moment is when he's trying to live Mjolnir and he can't, and he knows his father has turned his back on him, and that just kills him. He's no longer the favorite son. That was a great moment. And of course, when his
Yeah.
mom dies. Oh,
Yeah, I mean, there was plenty of good stuff. I mean, he's great. He's great as casting.
yeah, and he looks like Thor.
Yeah, I mean, there were some many. He has a lot of good moments. There's no question about it.
Yeah, there's some good stuff.
Yeah. One of the things about Kirby, we were talking a lot about his characters and just different basic things about his comics, but and we talked about last week. It was last week that Mark and I did our favorite all-time comic book artists, and one of the things that I talked about a lot was the power of a Kirby page. He can do more on one page than most artists could do in 10 pages. His pages move. They're like power. Covers not as quite as much. But for example, this was one of my favorite, and it was just a knockdown drag out. One of those silly misunderstandings that's kind of dopey. This issue, but look at this. One page, one panel, and it looks like it's popping off the damn page. One punch, the Silver Surfer. It looks like that's Kirby. It's about energy and power. He could make a big page, sometimes a one page or a 2-page splash, look so busy. Look at that, all the things going on. That looks like it's moving. His pages always do that.
Yeah,
Art always does that. It's not static at all. I mean, if you just look at something, that rain looks like it's really coming. That's probably one of his greatest splash pages right here.
that was a really good issue, by the way, and that was number 51, right?
Mm-hmm.
So how do you follow a saga of the Fantastic Four fighting God? How do you follow that? With a very personal, very heartfelt story.
Almost a Reed Richards story more than a Ben Grimm story.
Well, the man just helped his friends save Earth. He did it.
From right here. He's helped find
And
this
he still feels inadequate. A woman has told him 1,000,000,000 times, "You're my hero. You're a shining knight. You're the best. You're so strong. I love you just like you are." He still doesn't believe it.
No.
And then someone steals the power from him, and he sees what a power in the wrong hands can do. Great story.
Great story. And again, the run on FF, of course, the Kirby lead run on FF, which of course is 102 issues. I don't think it could be equaled, but especially somewhere right there around issue 40-ish, 44, when they started with the Inhuman saga, and then of course not too long up, right, it went right into the Galactus saga, right into This Man, This Monster, right into Black Panther, a lot of other things. I mean, for about 3, 4, 5 years there, it was some of the greatest comics. Not just the stories and ideas; they were all fantastic, but the art. And for those who don't know, Jack, again, it's too complicated to go into it right now. Just to, suffice to say, Jack started becoming very disenchanted with Stan, with Marvel in general, with Martin Goodman in particular. So he came to kind of a decision, and Roz agreed with him on this. He was still going to, and he needed the work. He was still doing the work. He was going to stop doing, giving away all of his best ideas. And so he still drew comics. He still would do most of the heavy lifting, most of the creating, most of the writing, and what have you. But he kind of held back on some of the ideas, thinking he would probably make a split, make an exodus at some point. And of course, he would do just that. Oops, I missed one. He would do just that. He would run soon over to DC Comics in 1970. Before that, again, he still had some great comics that he did, some great art, but he was tired of kind of just giving away everything, giving away the farm. That's the kind of way he looked at it. Okay. So in 1970, he picked up stakes, went to DC Comics. They asked him, what do you want to do? And he said, give me the lowest seller you got. He wanted to do a lot of other things. And he took Jimmy Olsen, Superman's pal, Jimmy, of all titles. They wouldn't let him draw the faces, of course, but that's another issue. And from there, he created some of the things that he had stockpiled. Jack created the Fourth World. That's where he started the building blocks of the Fourth World. The Jimmy Olsen, I think that's where Darkseid first popped up, if I'm not mistaken. It was Morgan Edge, like that.
You gave me that issue.
Oh, yeah, I remember I had a bunch of issues with that one. Yeah.
He appears, and he's not gray colored. He's
that's right. Yeah, Morgan Edge, who of course he was working for him. Of course, one of the new bosses at WGBS that took over the Daily Planet. And so, and it's kind of what a weird title for him to get started on. But it's true.
According to something, I don't know if it was somebody mentioned why he chose Jimmy Olsen. Not only did he choose the lowest selling comic book that was being published, he also wanted a title that had no set creative team, because he didn't want. He's such a nice guy. He didn't want to, get someone fired or get someone off.
Yeah, absolutely.
Really nice. I thought it was really nice.
It was. And it's still. You go, wow, that's an odd choice. That's an odd choice for him to do it with Jimmy Olsen, but it was cool. I mean, it was great. I remember my picture that I've been posting with Jack and myself at that con, I found tons of those in the quarter boxes, dude.
The Jimmy Olsen?
1990, yeah. And I brought him up to show him to Roz. And I was just showing, because we've been talking on and on all the time. When he was busy talking to Claude or somebody else, I would talk to Roz for a while. They were behind a table, Mike Thibodeau's table, and I just showed her, hey, look what I got. And she tried to take them out of my hand and said, well, Jack's not doing autographs at this con, as you know, but I'll take him up to the room and get him to sign them for you, because his arm's been bothering him a lot. And I almost cried my ass off right there. I already had his autographs from 1986 when I'd met him on a few things, so I didn't let her do it. So, no, I was just showing you that I had him. I can't do that. I don't want him to hurt his arm. No, it's fine. But man, was it just, she was a sweetheart.
Now that you mentioned that his arm hurt, how could it not? The man was drawing.
Dude,
I don't think anybody has beaten his record. Nobody can draw as many comic books a month.
Dude, and if you want an example, go to a YouTube. I recommend this one. YouTube. Go to the page channel called Kirby Continuum. They've got a bunch of little short videos out right now, like 2 or 3 minutes long, which show 65, 60, the month in 66, a month, how many, and they basically tally up all of his work of that year, like how many pages, and I remember like one of them, month by month, one of them said Jack had a light month this month. He only did 70. He only did 70 pages. Only did 70 pages. Yeah, fuckers, they did 70 pages in a year. That was nothing.
Somewhere I read that when he moved to DC, he had a contract that he had to do a certain amount of pages per month.
Yeah.
Or a certain amount of pages a year or whatever. And when they canceled the Fourth World because the Fourth World was not selling very well,
right?
Now, I understand. I mean, the art is magnificent, and I really like the Mr. Miracle stuff that he did. But the New Gods, it's like way too much imagination, way too much grandeur, but it's not very grounded, and the characters are not that interesting. I mean, the characters are really good, but they're like, he needed a writer. He needed Stan. I hate to say it, but he needed a writer. But the thing is, some of those titles got canceled, but he had to keep producing. So he was just, like you said, he just started throwing stuff at the wall. And he came up with these great concepts that, of course, have held DC for so many years, like Etrigan, the Demon. It wasn't a hit when it came out, but what Alan Moore did with the character was amazing. Or Onak. And again, he wasn't a huge hit back then, but what they've done with the character has been really fun. At least I love Omak, especially the mohawk that he has. What other crazy character did he come?
Forever People.
Forever People. The fourth one was Jimmy Olsen, Forever People, Mr. Miracle, and of course the New Gods.
Yes.
And then it was let's see.
Crazy stuff like this.
Manhunter. Yes. Mark Shaw Manhunter. Yes, the continuation of the original Manhunter, which was Paul Kirk.
Yes.
So he did, and then of course, as good as that issue was, because it was just beautifully well drawn. What Englehart did later by tying the Manhunter mythology of Jack Kirby to the Manhunters that he created that are part of the Green Lantern Corps, whatever.
It was crazy how he did that, but it was good.
Steve Englehart's really good. But also what Archie Goodwin and Walt Simonson did with the original Manhunter part. Oh my God, that's so good.
Great comic, man. Oh my God. We talked a lot about that comic when we were talking about Simonson. Made both our lists last week. It was
there. You go. That's another fun comic book. Commandy.
Commandy was wonderful.
Loved Commandy. Loved Commandy because again, just the world he creates. This destroyed world where there's only one human there, and then everybody else is a mutant or a dog man or a tiger man or a gorilla man.
Jack was a builder of worlds, man.
Yeah, and like what's his face? Morrison took this for inspiration for Final Crisis, made it impossible to read and impossible to understand.
Worst people should have ever read.
Yeah, no, I'm not gonna fight you with that. But the one thing that I like is that everybody keeps saying that Morrison is such an amazing writer and he comes with great concepts.
Not all the time.
But the one thing I have to say is he loves the Kirby stuff so much.
Yeah, he does.
Because he recognizes true genius. The man is a genius, so he recognizes true genius. The same thing with Alan Moore. Alan Moore did a whole comic book of Supreme. I hope you have the cover. I think it was Supreme. It was
called New Jack City.
Yeah, it was Supreme the Return, I believe.
Huh?
Supreme the Return #6.
I think so. It was he went to the Kirby planet or the Kirby universe, whatever it was Kirby world called New Jack City. It was fucking amazing.
He was the first and greatest Imagineer or something like that.
Well, as you know, I love a magazine called by the great Two Morrows, by the way, who put up my favorite stuff. I love Back Issue. I love Alter Ego. The Jack Kirby Collector.
Yeah, it's very good. You
I have every issue.
Yes.
Oh yeah, well I have every issue still. Yeah. And they're up to I've been buying them since 1995. They're only up to number 75 or whatever it is, So it takes a while. Good old John Morrow, love you, John, man. I love what you do, buddy. But he they're running a running thing through that mag over the years is an article that they did a lot called Kirby as a genre. Imagine that for a minute. You could love John Burns' art. You could love George Perez's art. We do. We could love Neil Adams. There's no other artist, creator that is a genre unto himself, and he is because they make a case for it in every issue.
It's
But
like I remember.
it's amazing how many people are inspired by him.
I think it was at the Oscars many years ago. They gave I think it was an honorary Oscar to Fellini. There's this really weird director from Italy, right? So he goes to thank him for the Oscar, and he goes, I think my family always enjoys the fact that my name has become a verb or something, because everybody refers to certain things in movies or in cinema as Fellini-esque.
Arian, still here?
Yeah.
I just want to say, Arian was saying, if you're still here, Arian Feliciano, some night next week, I hope, sir. If you're hearing me, if not, I'll send you he's had to go, so I want to tell him goodbye.
Yeah.
So you're talking about Fellini. Go ahead. I just wanted to
I just
say that RN, if you're still here, holler at you sometime next week. I hope you heard me, man. I hope you didn't. I don't see the chats very fast all the time. I apologize, but go ahead and continue, Carlos.
Well, I just thought it was funny that Fellini said his style, his directing style was so iconic, it became like a verb. Everything was Fellini-esque, or it's more like an adjective, right? Like a descriptive adjective. That it was Fellini-esque. The same thing with Kirby. When you see a Kirby page, you go, "That's a Kirby page." Just the power in it, the emotion, it just bursts out. And any artist that loves art and loves comic books can understand just how amazing it is. I mean, Alex Ross, everybody loves Alex Ross. Alex Ross loves Jack Kirby. Everybody loved the image image creators, and all of them with no one standing back. They loved him. Rob Liefeld, Todd McFarlane, what's his face, Eric Larson. Eric Larson apes Jack Kirby.
Yes, he does. Yes, he does.
Well, it was Eric Larson that decided to do a comic book. It was Fantastic Four. What was it? Earth's Mightiest Heroes or Earth's Greatest Comic Magazine, where it was like 12 issues.
Yes, I have those. Oh yeah, World's Great. It was just called Fantastic Four, World's Greatest Comic Magazine or something. A lot of different artists did the whole thing in Kirby style. It was kind of fun.
Right. They were all aping Kirby, and the thing is, the idea was that because Kirby left the Fantastic Four so suddenly, he didn't get like a good send off. So let's do a 12-issue miniseries that's going to be like, what if Stan and Jack were still writing the Fantastic Four after issue 102? And let's do like just an amazing send off. And you go, God, Eric Larson, he was wealthy from doing Savage Dragon. You can love it, you can hate it, whatever. He was wealthy. He did not have to take time out of his day to do a 12-issue miniseries where all he's doing is singing the praises of Jack Kirby. But he knows how important Jack is to the industry. No Jack, no Fantastic Four, no Marvel, no Marvel comics get stuck. Because as much as I love the DC heroes, they were stuck in a rut of just the same thing over and over. You could read Superman comic books, and back in the Silver Age, they were just the same thing. Imaginary stories. Somebody has red kryptonite, and he's going to mutate. Lois Lane or Lana Lang are trying to find out his secret identity. It was just the same over and over. The Batman comic book was a joke, just like the 66 series with Adam West. I love those heroes, yes, but I can admit that they were stuck in a rut. They were not doing anything interesting. Marvel came and gave everybody just a kick in the pants that they needed to change, to adapt, to become something else, to become something new. And they did. they followed suit, and Superman comic books got better. Batman comic books, Denny O'Neil came and just made them beautiful again, and just everything got better. Wonder Woman got worse, but thankfully she got better again.
Yeah. Yep.
So
Yeah, I hear you, man. Well,
as comic book readers, we owe a great debt that can never be repaid to Jack Kirby. Period.
no question about it, man. And he didn't. He didn't do that great at DC. There are a lot of theories on. A lot of people think that they took him away from Marvel out of spite. They were mad at Kirby for basically wiping his ass with DC for years because that's what Marvel was doing. And they were glad to take him out of there. But some say it was kind of them a plot, them luring him away from DC. And he wanted to get out of there. I'm not saying Carmen Infantino was publisher or any of those people did that, but there was a lot of things like that we're talking about that. So I don't know, but for whatever happened, Marvel, when Kirby went back to Marvel in the mid 70s, and he did a lot, including, of course, he went back and he took over the writing and drawing chores of Captain America. And a lot of people, no, I mean, you're right. His writing, I think he still had great ideas, but they were really very grandiose. They were very over the top. But the art, other than some of his 60s, great. I mean, his heyday in the 60s was some of his greatest stuff for me. I love Jack Kirby Bronze Age covers for Marvel because he did tons and tons of them. He did his own series. He was giving him Captain America 2001. He did a few other, but Devil Dinosaur. I mean, Eternal, some wacky stuff. But he did tons of covers as well. And man, it's nothing quite like a Jack Kirby, 70s Bronze Age cover.
He did a lot of really cool Avengers covers, and they were really nice. And then he came back to Captain America, and he just went nuts in Captain America.
Nuts, man! Like you said, I mean, he had these crazy covers.
And when he came back, you can say whatever you want, but he did the Eternals, and you read the Eternals, and again, the stories aren't that great, but the concept is amazing. It's the whole world, the Eternals, the Deviants, the Celestials, how the Celestials created those races, how they created mutants. And you go, oh my God, Black Panther was, again, just a fun comic book, just a fun romp. Maybe but it was fun.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't the serious Black Panther of that.
He was an action hero.
Before that, by Don McGregor and Billy Graham and people like that. But it was more Kirby doing them in his kind of style.
Yeah, well, the comic book used to be called Jungle Action. So
yeah,
it was Jungle Action.
It was, and it was, but it was interesting. Those McGregor issues were really well done. So, but yeah, and again, it was hey man, I love his 70s art at Marvel more than anything else.
You can actually look at this that cover that pinup right there.
Oh yeah, the one with Cap.
No, the one with Cap and Uncle Sam. And you can almost say, hey, that could be a Marvel DC crossover because, as you well know, DC has a character name.
Yep. This was before they did Freedom Fighters, which was a quality character, right? That they took.
You are
yeah, that's right. But yeah, it is almost like that. Well done, well done. But this was.
I see everything. I see all clues. 2001, of course.
Look how wackadoodle it was to do a 2001 comic book based on that friggin' movie of all things. But he did it. Not only did he do it, he did a series after the movie.
He did a series. What happens after he goes into the monolith? But not only that, he had created a character. I think his name was Mr. Machine, and then he later became Machine Man. If I'm correct,
you would be correct. I had a picture here somewhere of him, and I don't know what I did with it.
He didn't do the comic book. It was Ditko that did the comic book.
He did some. Did he do some issues of the comic or no?
I think the covers.
Yeah, probably the covers there. Again, Eternals. Not a book I loved or anything, but man, I love the art to him. I would be remiss when we were talking about New Gods earlier without showing some great some wonderful dark side art right there. By the way, but yeah, he did just all kind of crazy covers for a lot of different books. I mean, Invaders never looked better than with the Kirby covers. He even did this insane book right here. And he did the interior of this one.
I remember that. That was pretty sick. The scrolls were turned them into a Fantastic Four.
Yes, fucking crazy, man. Oh, some wackadoodle stuff. Back to the Silver Age just for a second there because that's a cool cover. And then later, Jack kind of was starting to get out of comics. He was doing some consulting and animation, some things like that. And later, because he'd been screwed around so much, DC really messed him up when he went there. Not as bad as Marvel did, but they did. Jeanette Kahn, who I have a lot of problems with. We won't get into why or anything like that, but I got my issues with Jeanette Kahn. She, at the coaxing of some people who really knew Jack.
Just a quick aside.
Yeah,
why are people so stupid? Why are people so stupid?
I'm
talking to a girl, and she didn't know that I had a comic book. A comic book radio show, a comic book YouTube channel. She doesn't know that I'm an expert on comic books. We're just getting to know each other. And she goes, and I told her I'm an expert on comic books. And she goes, "Is it true that Superman's life or that the Superman's story is based on Nikola Tesla?"
You should have told her yes, that's true.
What? Who comes up with that?
What the fuck?
She didn't come up with this. Somebody told her, right?
Who the fuck?
Some idiot trying to impress her. Some idiot who doesn't know anything about comic books trying to impress her.
God.
That Superman is based on Nikola Tesla, and she believed it. I'm like, no, it's based on a book called Gladiator.
Oh my God! Yeah, and that's the biggest influence. Absolutely, a little bit of John Carter in there. Yeah. I mean, so yeah, that. Well, you know what though? Bless her. She asked you a comic book question, and you were able to set her straight. So, Jack kind of ended his career with DC doing something very nice, throwing him a bone, and they let him design the superheroes for the Superpowers line. Say what you want about the art. Look how old. I mean, he was very old at the time. As much as he's not the right guy to draw Batman, we got to see him draw Batman once. A Kirby Batman, no matter how it looks to anybody, how awkward or clumsy, needed to happen just once, in my opinion. Just so you could say that he got drawn right under the wire. We got a Kirby Batman out of him because he never drew Batman that much until he did Superpowers, of course.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm fine with that. He mostly did layouts in this one, but he did help design that line. He also worked for Ruby Spears doing a lot of designs and had a lot of creative input on one of the greatest cartoons ever made that if it gets remade, I'm going to hurt somebody. And that's, of course, Thundar the Barbarian.
I love me some Thundar.
I love Thundar, man. I love Thundar. And that was kind of, after that point, Jack had kind of, Jack was gone from the business for a while. And I remember that was around the time, Carlos, that at that point, all I knew about, because there was a magazine that you could see the picture of there called Comics Journal, which I've been collecting for a long time at this point. Before that, though, I never knew what a funny book fanzine was. So I didn't know anything about comic history. I just knew what I would see in the page of a comic book. Or reading Stan's Soapbox, maybe. Or in the Daily Planet in the back of a DC comic, or the Bullpen Bulletins, or the Fred Hembeck thing in the back, whatever it was. But I didn't know anything, and I didn't know what a fanzine was until I got this mag. I thought, hey, Stan did it all, and Jack just drew things, and that's just the way it was. But then the Comics Journal came out with this mag right here, and we'll close up in a second, everyone. But basically telling us something I didn't know, that Marvel Comics had been holding on to Jack's original art. What does that even mean? I know what original art was. I mean, again, you didn't know this kind of crap when you were a kid. And then say a kid, I mean, This came out like in the mid '80s. I was a young adult, but you just didn't know this kind of stuff, and you didn't have an internet. This was the internet right here for comic book information. And
Like,
this story,
we just dated ourselves so badly.
oh my God, yeah, oh yeah. But this is when I started studying Jack Kirby and his history and comic history in general. I mean, look at Dave Sims. Anyone know who he is anymore? Return of Jack Murray Carvel's Art. What do you mean? And of course, it's a very lengthy interview with him in here. Frank Miller was involved in it. Kenneth Smith, I know no one knows who he is. Gil Kane, bless his soul. Wendy Peeney. Anyway, 150 professionals were, working to help Jack. And what it was back then, in the old days, it was a very primitive system. You would, as an artist, you would sign the back of your, these big pages of art that you would draw, and you basically signed your rights away, saying that you're selling this piece of paper. But there's the thing: there was the dispute. Were you really selling your claim to the creation of the characters? Well, it was Stan and Martin Goodman who wrote the credit boxes, not Jack, not Steve Ditko, not John Buscema, not John Romita. So it just said like written by Stan. It never said created by anybody at that point, as you know, in any of the comics, Marvel or DC. So Jack, Marvel at the time, run by James Galton and Jim Shooter, basically started thinking, look, I mean, this is a lot of years are starting to wind down. This is 20 years now more. And what if Jack Kirby came along and said, my name is on all these comics? First of all, maybe I'm owed some money here, other than just the money they paid me for this page that I drew. All this money these fucking characters are making. So every other artist that worked in comics was always given their art back. They would send it off to the printer. It would be printed, and they would get their art back. That way they could keep their own pages. They bought their own. I mean, they paid for the damn paper, and they could sell them and, make money off of them, make a good living off of them, but not Jack. Jack's was always held hostage and maybe some other artists too, but mostly Jack. A lot of his art was being held up by Marvel Comics in warehouses and given away left and right by people who worked for him. He was never sent his original art back most of the time. Some of it, but not all. DC did. Marvel rarely did. And he wanted it back. And that's how this fight got started. And made you wonder, why are you holding on to his art? Why don't you give it back? Well, not till he signs a release form. So those who don't know, back in the 80s, look at it. The King's original art held hostage. Will Marvel return Jack Kirby's art? It went on for years.
And he didn't get it back.
Well, he got a lot of it back. A lot of it we couldn't get back because they gave a lot of it away.
Well, according to comic book, that I mentioned, Comic Book Comics, a lot of that art was just being taken by whomever. People would office, they would see a bunch of art just sitting there, and boom, people would just take it.
That's right. Absolutely right.
It's a sad story, but the good thing is the people in the know, like us, we know the injustice that was done, and also the people in the know, like us and everybody that listens to your show, we know who was really responsible for those comics. Because when you take Stan Lee away from Jack Kirby, he still came up with the New Gods, with Darkseid, with the Eternals, with Etrigan the Demon, with Kamandi, with OMAC. And when you take Jack Kirby and Steve Ditko and Joe Buscema and John Romita away from Jack Kirby, from Stan Lee, what do you get? Well, you get Ravage 2099. You get DC Just Imagine, Stan Lee Just Imagine DC.
Stripperella, right?
That's what you get.
Yeah.
When you get standalone, that's what you get.
Yep.
Now, let me tell you something. Those Just Imagine DC, what was it? Just Imagine Stan Lee creates DC heroes.
Terrible. And he didn't write those either.
Those are so awful. The art is beautiful, and the stories are so lame, unreadable. Unreadable.
No, you're right, man. It's just crazy. No, it's true, man. And it's just that At this point, I'm a kid. Remember, look, Alan Moore, the great this is when he was the great Alan Moore. Not too many years before this, when he was a bit younger, he wrote, and I've seen it, but I've seen this writing. He wrote a gushing thing about how Stan Lee's the most brilliant guy who ever lived. It was so great. It was such a great art. Everything was Stan. It was brilliant. Well, by the time this had started coming out, and he had started, being exposed to more knowledge of the industry and the history and things that had gone on, he was not a big Stan fan at all. And I urge anyone, by the way, if you want to see Stan Lee flat out admit Steve Ditko created Spider-Man, watch the excellent documentary In Search of Steve Ditko by
really good. That's really
Ross. Good. Yeah, he pretty much admits it. And they say that the story is Stan's lawyer was on his way he was supposed to be there at that interview and was late and got caught in traffic.
Well, good, because I think Stan gave Ditko some credit, and much later in life, when he spoke after the King died, he did give Kirby some credit. At least he said there was nobody better.
Yeah.
So you go, well, it came late, but at least at some point he said it.
Look, this is the way, I wasn't there. I'm a firm believer in calling it co-creators, calling them co-creators.
Yes.
But I'm still of the belief that it's something like if we measure the entire lump sum of their co-creative of everything that came from that has their name on it. Let's put it like that. Their two names on it. I'm still of the belief that anywhere from 75 to 80% of it is Jack.
I'm with you, but I think together they made a better team than
they did. Well, because look, Lee, dude, it's no good making the car if you can't sell it.
And not only that, even when they hated each other, and they did that, it was a Silver Surfer special.
Yeah.
Good. It's really good. It's some of Jack's best art. It's some of Stan Lee's best writing. And they hated each other then. They were just a really good team.
Yeah. No, I mean, look, that's true. That's true, dude. All I'm saying is I think that most of it was Jack. That doesn't mean you take credit from Stan. And you could just say, look, I wasn't there, so I'm going to say co-created. But the thing is, and it's not Stan's fault that Jack is dead. So Stan's doing all these cameos all the time in these movies. And the whole general public thinks, oh, isn't that so cute? He created all these characters. And it makes me insane every time I hear that kind of crap. But all I'm saying is this. They should have found some way every time in every one of these fucking movies to put a big thing in there. Kirby's face somewhere. There's slight tributes here and there, peppered without and throughout them. There should have been a whole hell of a lot more. When they show Stan, find some way to give Jack some credit too. I mean, they give him credit in the credits now, and look how long it took them to do that. Up until like 2013, and it took a lot of fighting on the part of the Kirby family. Marvel didn't do this out of the goodness of their heart. They got dragged kicking and screaming, and finally, a judge with some sense, finally, in a rare bit of justice, looked at this thing and goes, this guy's a creator. I mean, you can't take... his family deserves something. This is now, at that point, almost 20 years after he had passed, and his family's getting nothing. This is bullshit, Disney. And they had to shame Disney into this shit when Disney bought Marvel. It was right around when Disney bought Marvel. Thank goodness. Because they were in the process of screwing the family again. And at least the Kirby family gets something. It took forever for Bill Finger to get any kind of credit as well. And at least the Kirby family gets something. But shit, man. It shouldn't have to be that way. But, if you're the artist and I'm the writer, big quotations, and I call you up on the phone and say, hey, man, how about we do a story where Doc Doom kidnaps Sue Richards and the Mad Thinker's over there with him and they do this, that, and the other thing. We talk for 10 minutes Yeah, and then we hang up, and then you bring me fucking 18, 19 pages, whatever it is, of a story. Did I write it? And then I take it from you. Oh, that's great. And I read what you fucking created. And then I erase all what little dialogue you got on the borders, and I write the dialogue in. Did I write that comic? Technically, you can say I wrote things on there, and I put dialogue. Is that the fucking same as me creating or writing anything? But no, the guy writing the credit box, gets to decide that, right?
Yep. It's very sad. It's very sad. But at least we have the comic books, and we have the knowledge of who
we
they
do.
are.
Yeah, we meaning you and me and a few people. Not enough.
That's why we do shows like this. You on your show, me on my show, just to remind people, hey, Stan did his thing, but Jack was there too. So
yeah, absolutely. And hey, look, I want to thank everyone who was hanging with us tonight. I'm sure you got a lot more fascinating things to do tonight with your time. With
actually, I just need to eat because my diet is killing me, as you all know, and I need to go to sleep because every day I wake up at around 5 a.m. to make my food, and also to work out at 5:30 a.m. Yes, I work out on an empty stomach.
What are we eating? What are we eating today?
What?
What are we having tonight? What are we eating?
What am I having? Very little chicken with avocado and tomato, and that's it.
Really? So I shouldn't tell you that I've had some ice cream tonight?
Die. Okay. You see, me
at Target,
I
s'mores ice cream. It's good.
Batman. Okay, so leave me alone,
dude. It's s'mores ice cream. I wanted you to know. It's got chocolate and vanilla and big pieces of chocolate fudge in it, man. Before that, I had a pizza.
I have to dress up
croissant
in
pizza.
A Batman suit that is made out of spandex. Shut up. I can't be fat. I need to be thin and cut and very superhero-like. Leave me alone.
Which means, as a superhero, you have no problem hearing about such things as pizza that's smothered in cheese. Is like a 4-piece, 4 meat pizza. It's really good.
I truly, truly hate you. You know this. You know this. I hate you. I have to go to a clandestine gym, and every day.
That's your boyfriend.
And risk getting COVID-19 to keep up with my ideal body type of Batman.
Your private life of being a clandestine gym is okay. I mean, Jim or Joe, whatever his name is, it's fine with me.
Shut up. I'm talking about a gymnasium where I can lift weights.
His last name is Nasium. That's weird. Go ahead.
I truly hate you. You know this, by the way, MPS. As much as you hate Stanley, I hate you.
I don't hate Stanley.
I do hate you. Okay. It was great.
Right,
great doing this show with you. I hope we do another one soon.
We will. Look, it's still Jack Kirby month. We're going to do some more Kirby shows here. So, thank you, my brother.
I know what we can do. I know what we can do, and we can tie it up with something that we've been wanting to do for a long, long time.
Go for it.
We talk about Kirby, one of his greatest creations, of course, Darkseid.
Oh, okay.
And Darkseid has been in 3 of my favorite comic books. He was in Apocalypse Now, which was a JLA Justice Society crossover.
Yeah, sure.
He was also in the Teen Titans X-Men crossover. But most importantly, he was, of course, the great villain in the Great Darkness Saga. So there you go. We can kill those off in just one stone, all 3 birds, and talk about the Legion finally.
We got to do that. And beyond Kirby, we need to do a Legion show. I would say play the Legion name game, but you cheat too much.
That's not cheating. It's all memory, my friend.
That's cheating.
All memory, my friend.
Oh, man. Well, buddy, I thank you for it, bro. I'm glad you came to hang out, man. And I really enjoyed it. We will do it again. And yes, that, of course, what you're talking about, more Kirby and the Legion, because you can never give the Legion too much love.
You gotta love Legion. Long live.
Long live and love the Legion.
I'm right there with you.
Yeah. All right, everyone. Look, hey, man, I thank everyone who was here, of course. We still have a few people left. That's, of course, Carlos, everybody. Hail to him. Hail Kirby Month, RR. RR, I want to thank you so much for being here. And it was very nice of you to put those pizza and ice cream icons in the chat there because it sure makes me want to go get some more ice cream. And I will, too, in fact. But where are we at? Okay, and then there was, of course, Jobber. I don't know if you're still here, Bo, but if you are, good to see you. We had Latino Slant, Paulie, who may be gone by now, RN Feliciano. Anybody else who was here, and anyone else who shows up later, listens later, I want to thank you for that. I hope you found it interesting, or if not, you can fake it. But anyone out there who is not, Eastland Burkholder, by the way, thank you as well. Sorry, I almost forgot you, but you know my memory, I'm old. Anyone who is listening, please, if you have not already, please subscribe. We like that sort of thing, and you could click like if you didn't like it, you can click dislike. I haven't got a dislike yet, but I need my first one, so. But if you do, please, one or the other. Thank you all so much from Carlos and myself. I had a wonderful time.
I did as well. And I was sleepy and hungry. And I forgot about that because I had a more important thing to do, which is talk about comics.
Well, that's because you are a superhero.
I try.
Later, brother. Later, everyone. Thank you, R. We are.